Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Harry's. We are thrilled to present today's story. What if the Department of Mysteries recruited Harry at age 7 as their ultimate weapon? If these stories bring joy to your day, please consider liking and subscribing. Every bit of support helps us continue this passion project. Now, prepare yourself for an amazing tale. Chapter 1, The Boy from the Cupboard. The night air stung Harry's cheeks as he darted between the neatly trimmed hedges of Privet Drive. 7 years old and already an expert at making himself invisible when it mattered. Tonight, after Dudley had broken the new television remote and blamed it on him, Uncle Vernon's face had turned that dangerous shade of purple that meant trouble. Harry hadn't waited around. He'd slipped out the back door during dinner, knowing they wouldn't notice until they wanted someone to wash the dishes. Now he huddled beneath Mrs. Fig's azalea bush, trying to decide if it was worth risking another night in the cupboard without dinner or if the autumn chill would force him back. Fascinating, a voice whispered from behind him. Harry spun around, heart hammering against his ribs. The speaker was tall and thin, wearing what looked like a long silver coat that seemed to shimmer under the streetlights. His face was sharp, with intelligent eyes that studied Harry like he was a particularly interesting insect. "Your magical signature is practically vibrating through the ward matrix," the man continued, talking more to himself than to Harry. "Croaker will be absolutely insufferable about being right." Harry's mouth went dry. "Am magical?" The strange man crouched down to Harry's level, still maintaining an arm's length between them. "My name is Augustus Rookwood. I work for the Department of Mysteries, and we've been watching you for some time, Mr. Potter." "Watching me?" Harry backed further against the bush. "Why?" "Because you're extraordinary, even if those deplorable relatives have done their level best to convince you otherwise." Rookwood extended his hand, palm up. "Would you like to see something impossible?" Despite every warning about strangers his teachers had drilled into him, Harry found himself nodding. There was something about this man that felt different. Not safe, exactly, but significant. Rookwood's palm began to glow with a soft blue light that coalesced into a perfect miniature replica of Harry himself, right down to the taped glasses and oversized clothes. The tiny Harry walked across Rookwood's palm, waved, then dissolved into sparkling dust. "Wicked," Harry breathed. "That's nothing compared to what you'll be capable of," Rookwood said, his voice taking on an edge of excitement. "If you come with me." "Where?" "Somewhere your abilities will be valued rather than feared. Somewhere you'll learn to do things that would make your relatives' small minds implode." Rookwood stood up, brushing non-existent dirt from his strange coat. "Somewhere you'll never be locked in a cupboard again." Harry's eyes widened. "How did you?" "As I said, we've been watching. More importantly, we've been measuring." Rookwood pulled out what looked like a thin wooden stick. "This is a wand, Mr. Potter. All wizards and witches use them to channel their magic." "Magic isn't real," Harry said automatically, then winced. It was what Uncle Vernon always shouted whenever Harry mentioned his strange dreams or the odd things that sometimes happened around him. "Then how do you explain this?" With a flick of the wand, Rookwood vanished entirely, only to reappear 3 feet to the left. Another flick, and Mrs. Fig's azaleas briefly transformed into butterflies before returning to their original form. Harry's jaw dropped. His mind raced through all the impossible things he'd experienced, ending up on the school roof when Dudley was chasing him, his hair growing back overnight after Aunt Petunia butchered it, the glass at the zoo. "I can do magic," he whispered. "Not just any magic. The kind that makes other wizards stop and stare." Rookwood knelt again. "The Department of Mysteries doesn't usually take an interest in children, Mr. Potter. We're researchers, seekers of magical knowledge too dangerous or profound for ordinary witches and wizards. But you." His eyes gleamed. "You're different." "Different how?" "Come with me, and you'll find out." He extended his hand again, this time clearly offering it to Harry. "Or stay here until your uncle decides you've been punished enough to be let out of that cupboard." It wasn't really a choice. Harry placed his small hand in Rookwood's larger one. "Smart boy," Rookwood said with the first real smile Harry had seen on his face. "Now, this will feel strange." The world compressed around Harry, squeezing him through what felt like a very tight rubber tube. His ears popped, his stomach lurched, and suddenly they were standing in a circular black stone room with identical doors spaced evenly around the walls. Harry doubled over, gasping. What was that? Apparition. Magical transportation. Rookwood steadied him with a hand on his shoulder. Most children vomit their first time. Impressive control. Before Harry could respond, one of the identical doors swung open. A short, stocky man with wild gray hair and robes covered in swirling silver patterns strode in. Behind him followed a younger woman with dark skin and close-cropped hair, carrying what looked like a clipboard made of brass. "So this is him." The older man circled Harry, studying him from every angle. "Doesn't look like much, does he? Malnourished, poor muscle development, mild myopia." He waved his wand over Harry's head. "But sweet Merlin, the magical core readings are off the scale. Look at this, Elara." The woman, Elara, stepped closer, examining whatever invisible readings the man was seeing. Her eyes widened. "That can't be right, Croaker. Even Dumbledore's signature doesn't. Dumbledore isn't connected to what this boy is connected to," the man called Croaker cut her off. "The prophecy sphere has been resonating for weeks. And the readings from the veil." "Let's not overwhelm the boy on his first night," Rookwood interrupted smoothly. "Mr. Potter, this is Saul Croaker, the head unspeakable of our department, and Elara Blackwood, one of our junior researchers." Croaker stopped his circling to peer directly into Harry's eyes. "Do you know who you are, boy?" Harry fidgeted under the intense scrutiny. "I'm Harry. Just Harry." The three adults exchanged looks that Harry couldn't interpret. "Not just anything," Croaker said finally. "Rookwood, take him to examination room 3. Full diagnostic spells, core measurements, and preliminary testing. Blackwood, pull everything we have on the Potter-Voldemort magical interaction event. I want a complete profile before morning." As Rookwood led Harry through one of the doors, the boy heard Croaker mutter behind them, "Dumbledore and his blood wards be damned. The boy belongs here." The next hours passed in a blur. Harry was subjected to dozens of magical tests, with Rookwood explaining each one in the same detached, clinical tone. He learned that his parents hadn't died in a car crash but were murdered by a dark wizard called Voldemort, who had somehow been destroyed when he tried to kill baby Harry. "That's why you have that scar," Rookwood explained, gesturing to Harry's forehead. "It's not just a mark. It's a magical connection, a scar in reality itself." They took him to a room filled with floating orbs of light. Croaker led him directly to one that glowed brighter as Harry approached. "Prophecies," Croaker said, his voice reverent. "The future speaking to the present. This one has your name on it, boy." Harry peered at the tiny label, SPT to APWBD, Dark Lord and "Harry Potter, what does it say?" Harry asked, reaching toward it. Croaker caught his wrist. "Not yet. When you're ready. Prophecies are delicate things. Knowing too much too soon can be counterproductive." By the time they finished the initial tests, Harry was exhausted but more alert than he'd ever been. Magic was real. He was a wizard. And these strange people thought he was special. Elara brought him to a small room with a bed that looked more comfortable than anything he'd ever slept on. "These will be your quarters for now," she said, her voice gentler than the others. "Tomorrow we'll begin orientation." "Am I going to live here now?" Harry asked, trying to keep the hope from his voice. "For the foreseeable future, yes." She hesitated, then added, "The Department of Mysteries is not a conventional home, Harry. We're not a conventional family. But you'll be safe here. And you'll learn things few wizards ever dream of knowing." "What about school?" And my aunt and uncle. Your relatives will be handled. As for school. She smiled, and for the first time, Harry saw a flash of excitement break through her professional demeanor. You're about to get an education unlike any other. After she left, Harry lay on the impossibly soft bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced with everything he'd learned. Magic was real. His parents had been magical. He was special enough that this secret department wanted him. For the first time in his memory, Harry fell asleep feeling something dangerously close to hope. Harry's first weeks in the Department of Mysteries established a routine unlike anything he'd known at the Dursleys. He woke at precisely 6 o'clock each morning when his room's lights automatically brightened. Breakfast appeared on a small table, always perfectly portioned, always including nutrients that healer Wainscott, a stern witch who'd examined him thoroughly on his second day, had prescribed for his deplorable physical condition. By 7, Elara would collect him for what they called basic magical theory. Unlike the other unspeakables, who treated him with a mixture of clinical interest and detached professionalism, Elara spoke to Harry like he was a person, not just a research subject. Magic responds to intent and visualization, she explained during their third session, watching as Harry concentrated on making a feather float without a wand. Most wizards need wands to focus their magic, like a lens focusing light. But you've been doing wandless magic accidentally for years. Is that why I'm here? Harry asked, sweating as the feather trembled but refused to rise. Because I can do magic without a wand? Elara's expression turned guarded. Partially. You're here because you have potential beyond ordinary magical education. By the end of the first month, Harry had made the feather float. By the second month, he could make multiple objects orbit around him like tiny planets. The Unspeakables measured everything, documented his progress with clinical precision, and pushed him further each day. Rookwood personally supervised his combat training, beginning with basic physical conditioning to correct what he called Harry's substandard Muggle upbringing. Faster, Rookwood commanded as Harry ran laps around a room that seemed to expand the longer he ran. Your magic is strong, but your body is its vessel. A weak vessel limits the power it can channel. The days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months. Harry learned magical theory from Elara, combat from Rookwood, potions from a hook-nosed unspeakable named Carmichael who never smiled, and something called occlumency from Croaker himself. Your mind is a fortress, Croaker would say, probing at Harry's mental defenses with startling ferocity. But fortresses can be breached. Show me your walls, Potter. The first time Harry successfully repelled Croaker's mental invasion, the old unspeakable had actually laughed, a sound so unexpected that several nearby instruments exploded. Good. Croaker had said, not even glancing at the destruction. Now do it again. Harder this time. Harry's 8th birthday passed with little fanfare. Elara brought him a small cake during their afternoon lesson and a book on advanced theoretical transmutation that would have been incomprehensible to him 6 months earlier. Rookwood's gift was more practical, his first practice duel against an enchanted training dummy. Harry had approached the dummy cautiously, remembering everything he'd been taught about stance, focus, and intent. Begin, Rookwood said, and the dummy attacked. Harry had lasted precisely 12 seconds before being blasted across the room. Again, Rookwood said before Harry had even caught his breath. The second time, Harry lasted 20 seconds. By the 7th attempt, sweating and bruised, Harry felt something shift inside him, a sudden clarity, as if the world had slowed down. He saw the dummy's attack pattern, predicted its movements, and countered with precision. When it was over, the training dummy lay in pieces, and Harry stood panting but upright. Rookwood's expression hadn't changed, but Harry had learned to read the subtle signs of approval, the slight incline of his head, the momentary softening around the eyes. Acceptable, was all he said. Coming from Rookwood, it felt like a standing ovation. 3 months after his 8th birthday, everything changed. Harry was in the middle of his daily training session with Rookwood when alarms blared throughout the department. The normally imperturbable unspeakable actually flinched. Stay here, he ordered Harry, heading for the door. Do not move. Naturally, Harry waited exactly 30 seconds before following. The department was in chaos, unspeakables rushing between rooms, magical instruments wailing, and at the center of it all, Croaker shouting orders. Breach in the time chamber. Containment teams, secure the perimeter. No one enters or leaves until. He stopped abruptly when he spotted Harry lurking in the doorway. I thought I told you to keep him contained, Croaker snapped at Rookwood. The boy is demonstrating initiative, Rookwood replied coolly. A quality we've been encouraging. Harry stepped forward, emboldened by Rookwood's unexpected defense. What's happening? Croaker and Rookwood exchanged one of those meaningful glances that Harry had learned meant they were deciding how much to tell him. We have a visitor, Croaker said finally. One who shouldn't be here. As if on cue, the doors to the circular room burst open. Two unspeakables Harry recognized from the research division dragged in a struggling figure, a tall, thin man with half-moon spectacles and a long silver beard. Harry felt a strange jolt of recognition, though he was certain he'd never seen this man before. Albus, Croaker said, his voice tight. You know the Department of Mysteries is restricted, even for the chief warlock. The bearded man, Albus, stopped struggling when he caught sight of Harry. His blue eyes widened, and something like pain flashed across his features. Harry, he breathed. Thank Merlin you're alive. Harry took an instinctive step back, moving closer to Rookwood. In the months he'd spent in the department, he'd developed an uneasy trust in the stern unspeakable. Rookwood might be demanding and sometimes harsh, but he'd never lied to Harry. Who are you? Harry asked. The bearded man looked stricken. You don't. Of course you don't. I'm Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. I was a friend of your parents, Harry. Enough, Croaker interrupted. This is precisely why we didn't inform you, Albus. The boy is under our protection now. Protection? Dumbledore's voice hardened. Is that what you call this? He disappeared from his relative's home 9 months ago. 9 months I've been searching, only to find him hidden away in the bowels of the Ministry. The boy was being abused, Rookwood said coldly. Neglected, underfed, treated like a house elf. Your precious blood wards were protecting his body while allowing his spirit to be crushed. And you care so much for children's spirits, Augustus? Dumbledore retorted. Or did you see a weapon to be forged? Harry flinched at the word, weapon, and Dumbledore's gaze softened immediately. Harry, he said gently. You don't belong here. These people rescued me, Harry interrupted, surprised by his own boldness. They're teaching me to be strong. To understand my magic. And what have they told you about your parents? About why you're famous in our world? Harry hesitated, glancing at Croaker, who gave a barely perceptible nod. That they were murdered by a dark wizard called Voldemort, Harry said. That he tried to kill me too, but something happened, and he was destroyed instead. That's how I got this. He pushed back his fringe, revealing the lightning scar. Dumbledore took a step toward him, but Rookwood shifted slightly, placing himself partially between them. And have they told you why you survived when no one else ever had? Dumbledore asked quietly. They said they're still researching that, Harry replied. There's a prophecy, Harry, Croaker cut in sharply. That's enough. Dumbledore's eyes flashed. So you know about the prophecy. What else have you been investigating without the Ministry's oversight, Saul? The Department of Mysteries answers to no one but the unspeakables, Croaker said. Not the Minister, not the Wizengamot, and certainly not you, Albus. The boy stays with us. His training continues. I cannot allow, it's not your decision. Elara stepped forward from the group of unspeakables. We've legally obtained guardianship of Harry Potter. The paperwork was filed with the appropriate Muggle authorities. His relatives signed the forms themselves. Harry almost smiled, remembering how Rookwood had described that particular visit to the Desleys. Apparently, Uncle Vernon had been only too happy to sign away his unwanted nephew, especially after a subtle confundus charm convinced him he was being paid handsomely for the transaction. Dumbledore looked from Alara to Croaker, then finally to Harry. "Is this what you want, Harry? To stay here?" No adult had ever asked what Harry wanted before. The unspeakables told him what to do, pushed him to his limits, measured and tested and trained him. But they'd never asked what he wanted. Harry thought about the cupboard under the stairs. About Dudley's taunts and Uncle Vernon's shouting and Aunt Petunia's cold indifference. Then he thought about making feathers float with just his mind. About the pride he'd felt when he'd mastered a spell that Alara said most adult wizards struggled with. About the quiet approval in Rookwood's eyes when Harry exceeded his expectations. "Yes," he said firmly. "I want to stay." Something like sorrow passed over Dumbledore's face. "Very well. But this isn't over, Saul. The boy has a destiny that extends beyond your department's research interests." "Perhaps," Croaker replied. "But for now, his destiny is in our hands." After Dumbledore had been escorted out, Croaker turned to Harry with an appraising look. "That was well handled, Potter. But now we have a problem. Albus Dumbledore is not a man who gives up easily, especially when he believes he's right." "What will he do?" Harry asked. "He'll watch. He'll wait. And he'll try to interfere." Croaker smiled thinly. "Which means we need to accelerate your training." That night, Harry lay awake in his bed, turning the day's events over in his mind. For the first time, he'd been given a choice, and he'd chosen the department. But Dumbledore's words nagged at him. A weapon to be forged. Was that all he was to the unspeakables? A tool? A research project? Did it matter, as long as he was growing stronger? Harry closed his eyes and focused on clearing his mind as Croaker had taught him. Whatever the truth, he would be ready for it. The department was making him powerful. And power meant never being locked in a cupboard again. 2 years passed in a whirlwind of increasingly advanced training. By his 10th birthday, Harry had mastered spells that Alara assured him were typically taught to 6th-year students at Hogwarts. His wandless magic had progressed to the point where he could manipulate objects with precision, create shields strong enough to deflect minor curses, and even perform simple healing on himself, a skill that proved useful during Rookwood's increasingly brutal combat sessions. Again, Rookwood commanded, circling Harry as he faced not 1 but 3 training dummies. "And this time, anticipate the crossfire." Harry dropped into a fighting stance, centering himself. The dummies attacked simultaneously, sending jets of stinging light toward him from different angles. 2 years ago, this would have overwhelmed him. Now, Harry's perception shifted into what Rookwood called battle time, that strange state where everything seemed to slow down, allowing him to process multiple threats at once. He sidestepped the first attack, deflected the second with a wandless shield, and countered the third with a precisely aimed stunning spell. The dummies adjusted, becoming more aggressive, but Harry was already moving, weaving between their attacks like they were dancing partners. When it was over, all 3 dummies lay deactivated on the floor, and Harry stood in the center, breathing hard but composed. Rookwood nodded. "Better. Your spatial awareness has improved." Coming from him, this was effusive praise. Later that day, Alara found Harry in the small reading room they'd set up for his theoretical studies. Unlike the clinical training areas or the sterile sleeping quarters, this room had actually developed something of a personal touch over the years. Books Harry had particularly enjoyed were stacked haphazardly rather than filed away, and Alara had smuggled in a comfortable chair that clashed with the department's austere aesthetics. "How are you feeling after the combat training?" she asked, taking the seat across from him. Harry shrugged. "Fine. Rookwood says my defensive casting is improving." "That's not what I asked." Alara had become more direct with him as he'd grown older. While she maintained professional boundaries, she was the closest thing to a friend Harry had in the department. I'm fine, Harry repeated, then sighed at her skeptical look. Sometimes I wonder what it's all for. The training, the tests, the endless measurements. Preparing you, Elara said simply. For what? She hesitated. That's a complicated question, Harry. Because of the prophecy. Harry had been asking about the mysterious orb for years, always receiving deflections or partial answers. Partially, Elara admitted. But there's more to it. Croker believes, we all believe, that you're meant for something extraordinary. Something to do with Voldemort? Harry pressed. He'd learned more about the Dark Wizard over the years, how he'd terrorized magical Britain, how Harry's parents had fought against him, how no one was certain he was truly gone. Elara's expression tightened. Yes. But you're not ready for the full truth yet. Harry closed his book with a snap. When will I be ready? I'm stronger now. I can do magic most adults can't. I've mastered occlumency. What more do I need? Experience. Context. Elara leaned forward. And that's what's coming next. Croker has made a decision. You're going to Hogwarts. Harry stared at her. What? Next year, when you turn 11. You'll attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry like any other magical child. She smiled at his shocked expression. With a few differences, of course. But why? Everything I need to learn is here. Not everything, Elara said. You need to understand the wizarding world you'll eventually operate in. You need to interact with other young witches and wizards. And most importantly, you need to be in position when certain events begin to unfold. What events? Before Elara could answer, an alarm chimed softly, the signal that Croker wanted to see them. They found the head unspeakable in what Harry had come to think of as the heart of the department, the circular room with the ever-changing doors, which served as a hub for the various chambers and research areas. Ah, Potter. Croker looked up from a parchment covered in complex arithmetic equations. I presume Blackwood has informed you of our decision regarding Hogwarts. Yes, sir, Harry said. Though she hasn't explained why. Croker set down the parchment. Walk with me. He led Harry through one of the doors into a long, narrow corridor Harry had never seen before. The walls were lined with what looked like paintings, except instead of static images, they showed swirling mists that occasionally formed recognizable shapes before dissolving again. Do you know what these are? Croker asked. Harry shook his head. Visual representations of prophecies, Croker explained. Not the prophecies themselves, those are contained in the orbs, but artistic interpretations created by unspeakables over the centuries. Glimpses of possible futures. He stopped before one where the mist seemed to form the shape of a lightning bolt, like Harry's scar, before transforming into a snake and then a skull. Divination is the most imprecise branch of magic, Croker continued. Yet prophecies have power precisely because people believe in them. They shape decisions, influence events. He turned to face Harry directly. Your prophecy is one of the most significant recorded in the last century. What does it say? Harry asked, pulse quickening. For the first time, Croker answered without deflection. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. So I have to kill Voldemort. But isn't he already gone? Not gone, Croker said grimly. Diminished. Incorporeal. But not gone. Our research in the years since your arrival has confirmed this. The magical signature in your scar is connected to something that still exists. And you think he's coming back? We know he's trying to. We've detected attempts, weak ones, but growing stronger, to influence events in the wizarding world. And next year, Something will be hidden at Hogwarts that we believe he will target. The Philosopher's Stone, Elara said quietly. Croaker shot her an irritated look. Yes, the stone. Created by Nicholas Flamel, it produces the elixir of life. Dumbledore has convinced Flamel to use it as bait, though he doesn't know we're aware of his plan. And you want me to protect it? Harry asked. No, Croaker said bluntly. We want you to let Voldemort get close to it. Harry blinked. What? Under controlled circumstances, Elara added quickly. We need to understand what form Voldemort currently exists in, how he's trying to return to power. The stone is perfect bait, and Hogwarts will be the perfect controlled environment to study his methods. With you as our agent on the ground, Croaker concluded. Harry looked between them, mind racing. So I'm not really going to be a student. I'll be undercover. You'll be both, Elara said. You'll attend classes, make friends, participate in normal school activities. But you'll also observe, gather intelligence, and report back to us regularly. Your classmates will see Harry Potter, the boy who lived return to the wizarding world after years of mysterious absence, Croaker said. Dumbledore will see a child he failed to keep under his influence, one he'll try to guide back to his vision of the right path. But we will see our operative, perfectly positioned to monitor a situation of critical magical importance. Harry felt a strange mix of emotions, excitement at the prospect of experiencing the wider wizarding world, anxiety about maintaining his cover, and an odd sense of pride that the Unspeakables trusted him with such a mission. What about my training? He asked. It will continue, Rookwood's voice came from behind them. Harry hadn't heard him approach, which wasn't surprising. Stealth was another skill the Unspeakable had drilled into him relentlessly. I'll be making regular contact under the guise of a distant family connection. We've created a cover story that will withstand scrutiny. And you'll have these, Elara added, producing a small leather case from her robes. Inside were what looked like ordinary items, a quill, a small mirror, and a thin silver bracelet. Communication devices. The quill writes in a journal that only we can read. The mirror allows for secure conversations in absolute emergency. And the bracelet. She paused. The bracelet monitors your vital signs and magical output. If you're in danger, we'll know immediately. Harry picked up the bracelet, feeling the subtle thrum of enchantment in the metal. So I'm never really alone. The Department of Mysteries protects its assets, Croaker said. There it was again, that clinical detachment, the reminder that for all the training and attention, Harry was still fundamentally a tool to them. A valuable one, certainly. One they'd invested years in shaping. But a tool nonetheless. Yet as Harry slipped the bracelet onto his wrist, he felt an unexpected sense of security. The Dursleys had never cared if he was hurt. The department might see him as a weapon, but at least they wanted to keep their weapon in good working order. I understand, Harry said. When do we start preparing for the mission? Croaker's thin lips curved into a rare smile. We already have, Potter. We've been preparing you for this since the day Rookwood brought you here. The remaining months before Harry's 11th birthday intensified his training to a grueling pace. Now his lessons included not just magical theory and combat, but also extensive briefings on Hogwarts itself, its history, layout, professors, and student dynamics. Hogwarts is divided into 4 houses, Elara explained during one such session. Gryffindor values bravery, Ravenclaw intelligence, Hufflepuff loyalty, and Slytherin ambition. You'll be sorted into one when you arrive, though we can't predict which. Does it matter which house I'm in? Harry asked, studying the detailed map of the castle she'd provided. Each has strategic advantages and disadvantages for your mission, Rookwood replied. He'd been joining these briefings regularly, adding his own perspectives on the school he'd once attended. Slytherin would give you access to Children of Death Eaters, Voldemort's followers, but would place you under constant suspicion from Dumbledore. Gryffindor would give you Dumbledore's trust but limit your movements after curfew due to their tendency to travel in packs. The hat takes your preferences into account, Elara added. But ultimately, it reads your character. Harry frowned. Won't it see my training? My connection to the department? Your occlumency shield should prevent that, Croker said from the doorway, where he'd been silently observing. We've spent years ensuring your mind is impenetrable. As Harry's birthday approached, the department began preparing him for his public re-emergence into the wizarding world. They crafted a cover story explaining his absence, a distant Potter relative in America who had claimed guardianship after discovering the boy who lives mistreatment. The American wizarding authorities are notoriously uncooperative with British inquiries, Rookwood explained. Dumbledore might suspect the truth, but he won't be able to prove anything. They also prepared Harry for the fame he would encounter. Everyone in the wizarding world knows your name, Elara warned him. They'll stare at your scar. They'll want to shake your hand. Some will worship you, others will resent you. Remember your training, Rookwood added. Observe everything. Trust no one completely. Maintain your cover at all costs. On the morning of Harry's 11th birthday, he stood in his quarters, dressed in ordinary wizarding robes rather than the utilitarian grey uniforms the department had provided for years. His hair, always unruly, had been allowed to grow a bit longer to better hide his scar when needed. Elara entered, carrying a small cake, a tradition she'd maintained every year despite the department's general disregard for such sentimentalities. Happy birthday, Harry, she said, setting it down on his desk. Thank you. Harry managed a smile, though his stomach was churning with anticipation. Today was the day his Hogwarts letter would arrive, not that there was any doubt it would come, but it represented the official beginning of his mission. Nervous? She asked. No, Harry lied, then amended at her knowing look, maybe a little. I've never been around other children, not really. Not since the Dursleys. Just remember, you're not an ordinary student, Elara said. You're an unspeakable operative, Harry finished. I know. Something flickered across Elara's face, doubt. Concern, but it was gone so quickly Harry might have imagined it. Croker wants to see you in the Hall of Prophecy, she said instead. Before your letter arrives. The Hall of Prophecy was a vast chamber filled with shelves containing thousands of glass orbs, each recording a prophecy made throughout wizarding history. Harry had been there only twice before, and both times had been strictly supervised. Today, Croker stood waiting beside the specific shelf that held the prophecy with Harry's name. The orb glowed with a faint bluish light as Harry approached. Today you take your first step toward fulfilling this, Croker said without preamble, gesturing to the prophecy. Are you ready, Potter? Yes, sir. Harry straightened his shoulders, falling into the formal posture Rookwood had drilled into him. Good. Because once you leave these walls, you enter a world of competing interests. Dumbledore will try to guide you toward self-sacrifice. Others will seek to use your fame for their own ends. Only we understand your true potential. Harry nodded, having heard variations of this speech before. There's something else you should know, Croker continued, his voice dropping lower. Something we've kept from you until now. Harry tensed. After years in the department, he'd learned that new information was rarely good news. We've detected anomalies in the Veil Chamber, Croker said. Fluctuations that correlate with your magical signature. There's a connection there we don't fully understand yet, but it's growing stronger. The Veil? Harry frowned. The Death Archway you showed me last year. It's more than a Death Archway, Potter. It's a boundary between worlds. And something on the other side responds to you. Before Harry could ask what this meant, a soft chime echoed through the hall, the signal that a ministry owl had arrived with mail. That will be your Hogwarts letter, Croker said. We'll continue this discussion when you return for your first mission briefing. As they left the Hall of Prophecy, Harry glanced back at the glowing orb that contained his destiny. For years, the department had been preparing him to face Voldemort, to understand magic beyond what was taught at Hogwarts, to be their agent in the wizarding world. But now, with talk of mysterious connections to the Veil, Harry wondered if there was more to their interest in him than they'd revealed. What other secrets were they keeping? And were they protecting him from those secrets, or protecting the secrets from him? The Hogwarts letter waited in the department's small owlery, carried by a dignified tawny owl. The envelope was addressed in emerald ink, Mr. H. Potter, the Eastern Quarters Department of Mysteries, Ministry of Magic, London. Harry broke the wax seal and unfolded the parchment, reading the words that would officially begin the next phase of his life, and his mission. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source, CHF, Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confede, of Wizards, dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. As Harry read the familiar words, he'd seen mock-ups in his briefings, he felt a strange sense of both anticipation and detachment. Unlike other children receiving this letter, he wasn't experiencing the wonder of discovering a magical world. He'd been living in its strangest corners for years. Tomorrow you'll visit Diagon Alley, Rookwood said, appearing silently beside him. I'll accompany you, maintaining our cover story. It will be your first public appearance as Harry Potter in the wizarding world. Be prepared for attention. I understand, Harry said, folding the letter carefully. As he prepared for bed that night, Harry caught his reflection in the mirror. The boy who looked back at him bore little resemblance to the frightened child who had hidden in Mrs. Figg's azaleas 3 years ago. This boy stood straight, his green eyes sharp and assessing. His lightning scar, once a mystery, now represented a connection to a prophecy, to a dark wizard, and to a destiny the department had been grooming him for. Tomorrow he would step out of the department's shadows and into the wizarding world as Harry Potter, the boy who lived. But in his mind, in the chambers protected by years of occlumency training, he remained what the unspeakables had made him, their ultimate weapon, hidden in plain sight. Chapter 2, The Hogwarts Operative. The morning sunlight splashed across Diagon Alley as Harry walked beside Rookwood, fighting to keep his face neutral despite the sensory overload. After years in the department's sterile corridors, the magical shopping district felt like stepping into organized chaos. Remember, Rookwood murmured, you're experiencing this for the first time. Show appropriate wonder. Harry nodded slightly, then widened his eyes and let his mouth drop open as they passed Flourish and Blots. Easy enough to fake, the towering stacks of magical books genuinely impressed him, even if for different reasons than a normal 11-year-old. Uncle Augustus, Harry said, using their cover relationship, can we visit the wand shop first? Rookwood nodded curtly. They'd decided Harry needed to publicly obtain a wand, even though his wandless abilities far exceeded most adult wizards. Maintain your cover, but remember what we discussed about wand selection. What they discussed was actually a mission in itself. The department had theories about wand allegiances and their connection to magical signatures. Harry was to observe his own wand selection closely and report every detail. The bell tinkled as they entered Ollivander's, and Harry immediately sensed the concentrated magic permeating the shop. Thousands of wands, each containing different magical cores, created a symphony of power that hummed against his trained senses. Ah, Mr. Potter. A wispy-haired man appeared from behind the shelves. I've been expecting you. Harry startled slightly, not at the man's sudden appearance, which his combat training had prepared him for, but at being recognized instantly. The unspeakables had warned him about his fame, but experiencing it firsthand was jarring. Your father favored a mahogany wand, 11 inches. Excellent for transfiguration. Your mother, on the other hand, preferred willow, 10¼ inches. Perfect for charm work. Ollivander's silvery eyes fixed on Harry's scar. And I sold the wand that gave you that scar. You, 13½ inches with a phoenix feather core. Powerful, very powerful. Harry absorbed this information while maintaining his wide-eyed expression. The department had files on his parents, but little personal information. These tiny details about their wands felt oddly precious. Well now, let's find your match. Ollivander began pulling boxes, having Harry try wand after wand. As instructed, Harry suppressed his natural magical control, allowing each wand's full reaction to manifest. Some shot out angry sparks, others wilted plants, one shattered a vase. With each failure, Ollivander grew more excited rather than discouraged. Tricky customer. Not to worry, the wand chooses the wizard, and will find your perfect match. Finally, Ollivander presented a holly wand with a phoenix feather core. The moment Harry's fingers closed around it, he felt a surge of warmth. Golden sparks shot from its tip, illuminating the dusty shop. Curious, Ollivander whispered. Very curious. What's curious? Harry asked, though he had already sensed something unusual in the wand's signature. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. The phoenix that gave the feather for your wand gave only one other feather. Just one. It's curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar. Harry's breath caught. Rookwood's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. Voldemort's wand, Harry said softly. Ollivander flinched at the name. We expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great. As they left the shop, Rookwood guided Harry toward a secluded alley. This changes parameters, he said in a clipped tone he used when processing unexpected intel. A brother-wand connection is significant. Croaker will want to know immediately. What does it mean? Harry asked. It means your magical signature is fundamentally linked to the Dark Lords in ways we hadn't anticipated. Rookwood's eyes narrowed. And it makes your mission at Hogwarts even more critical. The rest of their shopping proceeded according to plan. At Madame Malkin's, Harry stood still for his robe fitting beside a pale, blonde boy who introduced himself as Draco Malfoy. Hogwarts too, the boy drawled. Harry nodded, recalling the name from his department briefings. Malfoy, son of Lucius Malfoy, suspected Death Eater who claimed Imperius Defense. A potential source of intelligence, but also a risk. My father's next door buying books and mother's up the street looking at wands, Draco continued. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow. Harry made appropriate noises of interest while cataloging the boy's arrogance, sense of entitlement, and casual mention of rule-breaking, all useful data points for future interaction. Know what house you'll be in yet? Draco asked. Not sure, Harry replied honestly. Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they, but I know I'll be in Slytherin, all our family have been. When the fitting finished, Harry rejoined Rookwood, who'd been observing the interaction from nearby. Assessment? Rookwood asked quietly as they walked away. Potential asset if handled correctly, Harry replied automatically. Craves validation, easily manipulated through flattery, but likely to report everything to his father. Rookwood's lip twitched in what passed for a smile. Acceptable analysis. Their final stop was Flourish and Blots, where Harry selected his required textbooks plus several additional volumes that wouldn't raise suspicion but contained information relevant to his mission. As they prepared to leave Diagon Alley, a massive bearded man lumbered past them, carrying a small package wrapped in brown paper. Rookwood and Harry exchanged glances. They both recognized Rubeus Hagrid, Hogwarts gamekeeper and known Dumbledore loyalist. The package, Rookwood murmured. Approximately the right size. Harry nodded slightly. According to their intelligence, today was when Dumbledore had arranged for the Philosopher's Stone to be moved from Gringotts to Hogwarts. The timing fit perfectly. Phase 1 confirmed, Harry replied under his breath. That evening, back in the department, Harry delivered his first official mission report to Croaker, Rookwood, and Alara. He detailed everything from the wand selection to his encounter with Draco Malfoy to the sighting of Hagrid with the suspected stone. The brother-wand connection is significant, Croaker said, pacing the small briefing room. It confirms our theories about the magical resonance between you and Voldemort. What does that mean for my mission? Harry asked. It means you're the perfect instrument to detect his presence, Croaker replied. Your wand, your scar, they'll react to him, even in whatever diminished form he currently exists. Elara handed Harry a small journal bound in plain black leather. Document everything in this. It's linked to our archives here. Write in it daily, more often if you discover anything significant. Remember, Rookwood added, your primary objective is observation. Do not confront Voldemort directly unless absolutely necessary for preservation of cover or in life-threatening circumstances. And what about Dumbledore? Harry asked. He'll be watching me. Indeed he will. Croaker smiled thinly. Let him see what we want him to see, a boy discovering the wizarding world, perhaps unusually talented, but nothing that would indicate department training. Until September 1st, you'll remain here, Elara explained. We'll conduct final briefings on key Hogwarts personnel and refine your cover story. As the meeting concluded, Rookwood held Harry back. The brother wand is a variable we hadn't anticipated, he said quietly. But you've been trained to adapt. Don't disappoint us. Platform 9 3/4 bustled with activity as Harry pushed his trolley toward the Scarlet steam engine. He wore standard wizarding robes, his hair carefully styled to partially hide his scar, and maintained the wide-eyed expression of a boy seeing magic for the first time. In reality, he was cataloging everything, the patterns of movement, the security, minimal, the interactions between wizard families. His enhanced senses, trained through years of department exercises, picked up fragments of conversations about summer holidays, house rivalries, and new teachers. Excuse me, came a voice from behind him. A round-faced boy looked at him anxiously. Have you seen a toad? I've lost mine. Sorry, no, Harry replied, then, remembering his cover as a normal, helpful student, added, would you like help looking? Would you? The boy looked pathetically grateful. I'm Neville, by the way. Neville Longbottom. Harry's pulse quickened slightly. Longbottom, the other boy who might have fit the prophecy. The department had an extensive file on him. Parents tortured to insanity by Death Eaters after Voldemort's fall. Raised by his grandmother. Reportedly showing minimal magical talent despite his pure-blood heritage. I'm Harry. Harry Potter. Neville's eyes widened comically. Really? Wow, I mean, he glanced at Harry's forehead. Let's find your toad, Harry said, redirecting the conversation. As they searched, he casually gathered information from Neville about his upbringing and his anxieties about Hogwarts, filing it away for his evening report. After helping Neville locate his toad, under a bench near the middle of the train, Harry found an empty compartment and settled in, using the solitude to center himself before the inevitable social interactions. The train had barely started moving when the door slid open and a lanky, red-haired boy peered in. Mind if I sit here? Everywhere else is full. Harry gestured to the seat opposite, assessing the newcomer. Worn robes, hand-me-down trunk, red hair, almost certainly a Weasley, another family prominently featured in his briefings. Known Dumbledore supporters and Order of the Phoenix members during the war. I'm Ron. Ron Weasley, the boy confirmed Harry's analysis. Harry Potter. Ron's jaw dropped. Blimey. Do you really have the, he pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry lifted his fringe to reveal the lightning scar, maintaining an expression of mild discomfort that wasn't entirely feigned. The department had prepared him for his celebrity status, but the reality of it still felt strange. Wicked, Ron breathed. So that's where you know who. Yes, Harry said shortly. But I don't remember it. Nothing? Ron asked eagerly. Harry hesitated. The department had crafted a careful response to this inevitable question, enough to satisfy curiosity without revealing anything meaningful. Just a flash of green light, he said, which was partially true. His occlumency training had unlocked fragmented memories of that night, but nothing useful beyond what the department already knew. Their conversation was interrupted by a bushy-haired girl already wearing her Hogwarts robes. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "A boy named Neville's lost one." "We already found it," Harry replied. "He has it now." The girl looked momentarily disappointed at being deprived of a mission, then recovered quickly. "Oh, well, that's good. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way." She spoke at a rapid pace, words tumbling over each other. "And you are?" "Ron Weasley," mumbled Ron through a mouthful of the sandwich his mother had packed. "Harry Potter," Harry said, carefully observing her reaction. Her eyes widened. "Are you really?" "I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. Harry blinked, genuinely surprised. The department had shown him those books, and the information in them was laughably inaccurate. "You shouldn't believe everything you read," he said mildly. Hermione looked affronted at the suggestion that books might contain errors. Before she could respond, the compartment door slid open again, revealing Draco Malfoy flanked by two larger boys. "They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment," Draco said, eyes fixing on Harry. "So it's you, is it?" "Yes," Harry replied, keeping his tone neutral while rapidly assessing the situation. Draco was clearly establishing dominance, using his two companions as muscle. The department had trained Harry extensively in social dynamics and power plays. "This is Crabbe and Goyle," Draco said carelessly. "And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy." Ron coughed, badly disguising a snigger. Harry noted the immediate flash of anger in Draco's eyes. "Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. Red hair, freckles, and a hand-me-down robe. You must be a Weasley." He turned back to Harry. "You'll soon find that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." He extended his hand. Harry considered his options quickly. Rejecting Malfoy outright would close a potential intelligence source. Accepting would alienate Ron, who could provide access to a family with order connections. Harry chose a third option. He looked at Draco's hand but didn't take it. "I think I can figure out the wrong sort for myself, thanks," he said, keeping his tone deliberately ambiguous, not hostile enough to make an enemy, but not friendly enough to suggest allegiance. Draco's pale face flushed slightly. "I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either." Harry felt a genuine flash of anger, which he channeled into a cold stare, one he'd learned from Rookwood. "Is that a threat, Malfoy?" Something in Harry's expression made Draco step back slightly. "Just a friendly warning. Come on, Crabbe, Goyle." After they left, Ron looked at Harry with newfound respect. "That was brilliant. You scared Malfoy off." Harry shrugged, inwardly noting that his reaction had been stronger than anticipated. The Unspeakables had extensively briefed him on his parents' deaths, treating it as historical data rather than personal tragedy. He hadn't expected the protective anger he'd felt at Malfoy's casual mention of them. As the journey continued, Harry maintained his cover as an ordinary first year, expressing appropriate amazement at magical suites and trading stories with Ron. All the while, his trained mind catalogued information, assessed potential assets and threats, and prepared for arrival at Hogwarts. When the train finally pulled into Hogsmeade Station, Harry joined the other first-years following Hagrid to the boats. As the castle came into view, rising majestically against the night sky, Harry allowed himself a moment of genuine wonder. For all the department's detailed briefings, seeing Hogwarts in person was breathtaking. The boats glided across the Black Lake, and Harry focused his senses, feeling the ancient magic radiating from the castle. The department had theorized that Hogwarts' magical foundations might be connected to the same primordial forces studied in the Veil Chamber. Now, experiencing it firsthand, Harry could detect subtle similarities in the magical signatures. Professor McGonagall met them in the entrance hall, exactly as described in his briefings, stern, composed, with an aura of formidable magical control that Harry's enhanced senses detected immediately. She explained the sorting ceremony before leaving them briefly. "How exactly do they sort us?" Harry asked Ron, maintaining his cover of ignorance. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Harry nodded absently, scanning the room and identifying key students from his briefings. Draco Malfoy with his cronies. Susan Bones, niece of the head of magical law enforcement. Several children of suspected Death Eaters. Future intelligence sources and potential threats, all conveniently gathered in one place. When McGonagall returned and led them into the great hall, Harry took in the enchanted ceiling, the 4 house tables, and the staff table at the front. His gaze locked briefly with Dumbledore's, and he felt a subtle pressure against his mental shields, not a full legilimency attack, but a gentle probe. Harry maintained his wide-eyed, overwhelmed expression while keeping his shields firmly in place. The Sorting Hat sang its song, explaining the 4 houses. Then, one by one, students were called forward. "Potter, Harry." Whispers erupted throughout the hall as Harry approached the stool. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" Harry sat down, and the hat dropped over his eyes. Immediately, he reinforced his occlumency barriers as instructed by Croaker. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind, either. There's talent, oh yes, and a thirst to prove yourself, but what's this? Interesting, very interesting." Harry maintained his shields, blocking the hat from his department training and mission knowledge. "Occlumency at your age," the hat sounded surprised. "Most unusual. You're hiding something significant, but I can still see enough. You have remarkable abilities, and such ambition to use them. You could be great, you know, and Slytherin would help you on the way to greatness." Harry considered his mission objectives. Slytherin would provide access to children of Death Eaters, valuable intelligence sources. But it would also place him under increased scrutiny from Dumbledore and separate him from Ron Weasley, a potential connection to the Order of the Phoenix. "Not Slytherin," the hat responded to his thoughts. "Are you sure? You could be great, you know." Harry pushed a thought toward the hat. "I need to be where I can accomplish my goals most effectively." "Ah, calculating even now. Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor." The Gryffindor table exploded with cheers. The Weasley twins chanted, "We got Potter. We got Potter," as Harry made his way to an empty seat. He noted Dumbledore's approving smile and McGonagall's satisfied nod. Gryffindor aligned with their expectations for the boy who lived, which would make his cover easier to maintain. As the feast appeared on the tables, Harry engaged in conversation with his new housemates while discreetly observing the staff table. He identified each professor based on his briefings: Tiny Flitwick, severe Snape, nervous-looking Quirrell with his distinctive turban. When his gaze met Snape's, Harry felt a sharp pain in his scar. Simultaneously, he sensed a magical disturbance, faint but unmistakable to his trained senses. But it wasn't coming from Snape. Harry shifted his focus slightly and realized the source was Quirrell, or more precisely, Quirrell's turban. Interesting. Very interesting. Who's the teacher talking to Professor Quirrell? Harry asked Percy Weasley, Ron's prefect brother, while keeping his eye on both. That's Professor Snape. Head of Slytherin House. Teaches potions, but everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape. Harry nodded, filing away the information while continuing his covert observation. The magical disturbance around Quirrell was unlike anything he'd encountered in the department. It felt fractured, as if two signatures were overlapping imperfectly. After the feast, Percy led the first years to Gryffindor Tower, explaining about the changing staircases and moving portraits. Harry memorized the route automatically, adding it to his mental map of the castle. In the dormitory, Harry claimed the bed between Ron's and Neville's, establishing himself in a position to monitor both. As his dorm mates fell asleep, Harry remained awake, organizing his observations for his first report. When he was certain everyone was sleeping deeply, Harry silently retrieved the enchanted journal from his trunk. Using a nonverbal Lumos spell, one of the first wandless magics he'd mastered at the department, he began to write. First day report, sorted into Gryffindor as discussed. Established initial connections with target subjects, Weasley, Longbottom, Granger. Detected unusual magical signature from Professor Quirrell, specifically emanating from his turban. Signature exhibits fracture patterns consistent with parasitic magical presence. Correlation with scar pain suggests possible V connection. Will monitor closely. The words sank into the page and disappeared, transmitted to the department's archives. A moment later, new words formed, continue observation of Quirrell. Approach with extreme caution. Do not reveal enhanced abilities unless absolutely necessary. Standard check-in protocols apply. See. Harry closed the journal, extinguished his wandless light, and lay back on his bed. His mission had begun. Today, we will be learning about the Philosopher's Stone, Professor McGonagall announced to the first-year Transfiguration class. Harry's attention snapped into focus. After 2 weeks at Hogwarts, he'd settled into a routine of classes, careful social integration, and covert observation. But this was the first direct mention of his mission's primary target. The Philosopher's Stone represents one of the most advanced applications of alchemy and transfiguration, McGonagall continued. Created by Nicholas Flamel, it can transform any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which grants immortality to the drinker. Hermione's hand shot into the air. Professor, is it true that Mr. Flamel is over 600 years old thanks to the elixir? 665, to be precise, Miss Granger, McGonagall confirmed. The stone demonstrates how transfiguration, when mastered at its highest levels, can alter the fundamental nature of existence itself. Harry made appropriate notes while his mind raced. This was clearly a planted lesson, perhaps Dumbledore's way of testing student reactions. Harry maintained a facade of mild academic interest while observing his classmates. Most seemed merely curious or bored, but he noticed Draco Malfoy paying unusually close attention. After class, Harry deliberately bumped into Hermione, causing her to drop her books. Sorry, he said, helping her gather them. McGonagall's lesson about the stone was interesting, wasn't it? Fascinating. Hermione agreed enthusiastically. I've read about Nicholas Flamel, of course, but I didn't know the stone could create unlimited gold too. I wonder where it's kept. Something that valuable must have incredible security. I expect it's at Gringotts, Harry replied, planting the seed. Safest place in Britain, isn't it? Actually, Ron joined their conversation. My brother Bill works at Gringotts, and he told me someone tried to rob a high-security vault this summer. Didn't get anything, though. Whatever they were after had already been moved. Really? Harry feigned surprise, though this aligned perfectly with the department's intelligence. When did this happen? July 31st, same day as your birthday, Ron said. Weird coincidence, right? Harry nodded, making a mental note to include this confirmation in his evening report. The timeline matched perfectly. Hagrid had retrieved the stone from Gringotts the same day Harry had visited Diagon Alley. As the weeks passed, Harry carefully balanced his cover as a normal student with his mission objectives. He excelled in classes but deliberately held back, showing talent without revealing the full extent of his abilities. He formed friendships, particularly with Ron and Hermione, while maintaining awareness that these connections served his mission. During flying lessons, Harry demonstrated natural skill on a broomstick. When Neville injured himself and Draco stole his Remembrall, Harry executed a perfect diving catch that showcased his reflexes and spatial awareness, skills honed through years of department training. McGonagall's reaction was exactly as predicted. Instead of punishment, she recruited him as Gryffindor Seeker. Youngest house player in a century, Ron marveled that evening. You must be brilliant on a broom. Harry shrugged modestly while inwardly calculating the advantages his new position offered. Quidditch provided a legitimate reason for him to be out on the grounds, expanded his social network across houses and years, and reinforced his cover as a naturally gifted but otherwise normal student. That night in his journal entry, Harry wrote, "Quidditch position secured. Provides additional mobility and credibility. Continuing Quirrell surveillance. Magical disturbance remains consistent. Have noted correlation between proximity to Quirrell and scar sensitivity." The response came quickly, "Well done. Maintain athletic cover." New intel, department sources confirm Dumbledore has hidden S behind multiple protections. Faculty involved, McGonagall, Flitwick, Sprout, Snape, Quirrell. Investigate security measures without arousing suspicion. See Halloween marked a significant development. During the feast, Professor Quirrell burst into the Great Hall, announced a troll in the dungeons, and promptly fainted. Harry immediately noted several inconsistencies. Quirrell's collapse looked staged, and more importantly, Harry's enhanced senses detected that the magical disturbance around the professor had intensified dramatically. When Ron mentioned that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom, unaware of the troll, Harry saw both a genuine concern and a tactical opportunity. Leading Ron to find Hermione, Harry tracked the troll's scent, another enhanced ability courtesy of department training. They found Hermione trapped by the troll in the bathroom. Harry assessed the situation instantly: 12-foot mountain troll, limited maneuverability in the confined space, civilian at risk, magic-resistant hide making most first-year spells ineffective. "Ron, distract it," Harry commanded, falling into combat mode before catching himself. He had to handle this as an untrained first-year would, not a department operative. When Ron's levitated club knocked out the troll, the professors arrived to find 3 shaken first-years standing over the unconscious creature. Harry carefully played his role, explaining they'd been looking for Hermione and found the troll by accident. What Harry didn't mention was that he'd noticed Snape arriving with a bloody leg, suggesting he'd been somewhere other than the dungeons when the alarm was raised. Nor did he mention that he'd detected Quirrell's magical signature briefly outside a third-floor corridor, the Forbidden Corridor housing the stone. Later that night, after his dorm mates were asleep, Harry documented these observations in his journal, adding, "Troll incident likely diversionary tactic. Evidence suggests Quirrell attempted access to third-floor corridor while staff and students were directed to dungeons. Snape appears to have intercepted, sustaining minor leg injury. Connection between Quirrell and V increasingly probable." The department's response was immediate: "Assessment aligns with our analysis. Accelerate investigation of corridor protections. Determine what defenses have been breached. If Quirrell equals V access point, must understand his capabilities and limitations. Exercise extreme caution." Are the signature indicated Rookwood had taken personal interest in this development. Knight to E5, Ron said confidently, watching as his chess piece moved across the board to capture Harry's bishop. Harry frowned at the board. After 3 months at Hogwarts, he'd integrated successfully into student life, maintaining close friendships with Ron and Hermione while continuing his covert mission. Chess with Ron had become a regular activity, one Harry genuinely enjoyed despite regularly losing. The department hadn't included wizard chess in his training. "You're getting better," Ron encouraged as Harry contemplated his next move. "You've lasted 15 minutes this time." "Small victories," Harry replied dryly, moving his queen. "Check." Ron grinned. "Nice try, but, queen to H3. Checkmate." Harry sighed as his king threw down its crown. "One day, Weasley. One day." Hermione looked up from her massive book. "You should apply your potion's focus to chess, Harry. You analyze ingredients and reactions perfectly, why not chess moves?" It was true that Harry had demonstrated exceptional skill in potions, despite Snape's obvious dislike of him. Years of precision training in the department's labs had given Harry an intuitive understanding of ingredient interactions. Different kind of thinking, Harry replied, helping Ron reset the board. So, are we agreed on our plan for the holidays? I'll look up Nicholas Flamel in the library while you two are away. This was their current project, discovering why the name Nicholas Flamel seemed significant beyond the brief mention in Transfiguration. Harry, of course, already knew everything about Flamel and the stone, but had carefully guided Ron and Hermione toward investigating the connection between Flamel and whatever was hidden in the third-floor corridor. I can ask my parents, Hermione offered. They're both avid readers. And I'll check at home, Ron added. Though I doubt I'll find anything unless it's mentioned in 12 Failsafe Ways to Charm Witches, that's the only book Fred and George ever read. As Christmas approached, the castle emptied of students. Harry had arranged to stay at Hogwarts ostensibly because returning to his American Guardian was impractical for such a short break. In reality, the department wanted him to use the reduced population to explore the third-floor corridor's defenses. On Christmas morning, Harry was surprised to receive actual gifts, something the department had never provided. Ron gave him chocolate frogs, Hermione a book on famous seekers, Hagrid a hand-carved wooden flute. There was even a sweater from Mrs. Weasley, who'd apparently included Harry in her family tradition despite never having met him. The final package contained something that made Harry's pulse quicken, a fluid, silvery gray cloak that rendered the wearer invisible. The anonymous note claimed it had belonged to his father. Harry immediately recognized its tactical value for his mission, but was puzzled by its source. Was this Dumbledore's way of encouraging his investigation? Or something else entirely? He documented the cloak in his evening report, receiving instructions to test its magical properties thoroughly and exploit its capabilities for corridor reconnaissance. That night, Harry donned the cloak and moved silently through the castle, his department's stealth training making him virtually undetectable even without magical concealment. He found himself drawn to the library's restricted section, searching for information on the stone's protections. His exploration was interrupted when he nearly encountered Filch and Snape, forcing him to take refuge in an unused classroom. There, he discovered the Mirror of Eriste, a magical artifact not mentioned in any of his briefings. Standing before it, Harry saw not just himself, but a crowd of people. A man and woman at the front looked at him with loving smiles. The man had Harry's untidy hair and glasses, the woman, his green eyes and facial structure. "Mom. Dad," he whispered, momentarily forgetting his training, his mission, everything except the image before him. For the first time since the department had taken him in, Harry felt a profound sense of loss. The unspeakables had explained his parents' deaths clinically, treating it as historical context for his mission. But seeing them now, even as mere reflections, awakened something the department had never addressed: grief. Harry returned to the mirror 3 nights in a row, drawn by a longing he hadn't known he possessed. On the 3rd night, Dumbledore was waiting for him. "Back again, Harry." Harry controlled his startled reaction, though inwardly he berated himself for failing to detect the headmaster's presence. "I didn't see you, sir." "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," Dumbledore said mildly. "So you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the Mirror of Eriste." "I didn't know it was called that, sir. But I expect you've realized what it does." Harry hesitated, analyzing the conversation's purpose. Was this a test? "It shows us what we want. Whatever we want." "Yes and no," Dumbledore said quietly. "It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts." As Dumbledore explained the mirror's function and dangers, Harry maintained his cover of an innocent, curious student. Yet internally, he was deeply disturbed. If the mirror truly showed one's deepest desire, what did it mean that Harry saw his family rather than mission success or magical achievement? Had the department's conditioning failed in some fundamental way? "The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, Harry," Dumbledore concluded, "and I ask you not to go looking for it again. If you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared." After Dumbledore left, Harry remained motionless, processing. The headmaster's appearance was too convenient, his guidance too pointed. This had been a test, or perhaps a message. Dumbledore was watching him, assessing him, perhaps even trying to influence him through emotional manipulation. In his journal entry that night, Harry reported the encounter factually but omitted what he'd seen in the mirror. Some things, he decided, were not relevant to the department's mission. The response came swiftly: Mirror of Erased known powerful artifact. Highly significant that D showed it to you. Likely being repurposed as S protection. Continue monitoring D's interest in your activities. See. When term resumed, Hermione returned with the crucial information about Flamel that Harry had been carefully guiding her toward discovering. Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone, she announced triumphantly. The what? Said Ron. As Hermione explained about the stone's properties, Harry feigned appropriate amazement while watching his friends reach the conclusion he'd been steering them toward for months. That's what's being guarded on the 3rd floor. That's what's under the trapdoor. The Philosopher's Stone. Hermione whispered dramatically. The pieces were falling into place publicly now. Harry's next task was to determine the corridor's defenses without revealing his department training. Fortunately, an opportunity presented itself when Hagrid won a dragon egg in a pub game. The subsequent adventure, hatching an illegal dragon and arranging for it to be smuggled away by Charlie Weasley's friends, resulted in Harry, Hermione, and Neville being caught out of bounds and assigned detention in the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. There, Harry encountered something drinking unicorn blood, something that caused his scar to burn with unprecedented intensity. His enhanced senses detected the same fractured magical signature he'd observed around Quirrell, but stronger, more defined. Harry Potter, a centaur named Firenze, told him after driving the creature away, "Do you know what unicorn blood is used for?" "No," Harry said truthfully. This was outside his department briefings. "It is a monstrous thing, to slay a unicorn. Only one who has nothing to lose, and everything to gain, would commit such a crime. The blood of a unicorn will keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips." "But who'd be that desperate?" Harry asked, already forming the connection. "If you're going to be cursed forever, death's better, isn't it?" "It is," Firenze agreed, "unless all you need is to stay alive long enough to drink something else, something that will bring you back to full strength and power, something that will mean you can never die. Mr. Potter, do you know what is hidden in the school at this very moment?" "The Philosopher's Stone," Harry whispered. This encounter confirmed the department's theory: Voldemort was alive in some diminished form, sustaining himself on unicorn blood while attempting to steal the stone to regain his body. And somehow, he was working through Professor Quirrell. That night, Harry's journal entry was urgent: confirmed V presence in Forbidden Forest. Consuming unicorn blood for sustenance. Magical signature matches Quirrell's turban disturbance. High probability V is possessing Quirrell to access S, recommend immediate intervention. For the first time, the response showed genuine alarm: do not intervene directly. Continue observation only. Department team being assembled for extraction of S if necessary. Maintain cover at all costs. See. Harry frowned at this response. The department was being unusually cautious. If Voldemort obtained the stone before they acted, the consequences could be catastrophic. The situation accelerated when Harry overheard Quirrell whimpering in an empty classroom, apparently surrendering to an unseen threat. "No, no, not again, please," followed by, all right, all right." Harry's scar burned at the proximity, confirming his suspicions about Voldemort's control over the professor. After exams finished, Harry received an urgent summons from the department, the first direct communication since he'd arrived at Hogwarts. The message, delivered via the enchanted mirror, was brief: stone security compromised. D absent from castle. Q expected to move tonight. Monitor situation. Extraction team en route. Do not engage unless survival threatened. That afternoon, Harry learned that Dumbledore had indeed been called to the Ministry on urgent business. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. "It's happening tonight," Harry told Ron and Hermione. "Quirrell's going after the stone tonight." "But what can we do?" Hermione asked anxiously. "Go to McGonagall," Ron suggested. Harry shook his head. "She won't believe us without proof. And by the time we get proof, it'll be too late. So we're going to stop him ourselves." Ron looked nervous but determined. Harry hesitated. The department had explicitly ordered him not to intervene. But if he didn't act, his cover as a heroic Gryffindor would be compromised. And more importantly, something deeper was driving him, something beyond his mission parameters. "Yes," Harry decided. "We're going to stop him ourselves." That night, Harry led Ron and Hermione to the third-floor corridor. Using a charm to subdue Fluffy, the three-headed dog guarding the trapdoor, they descended into the series of chambers containing the stone's protections. Each challenge required different skills. Sprout's Devil's Snare tested herbology knowledge, Flitwick's Flying Keys demanded seeker abilities, McGonagall's giant chess set required strategic thinking. Harry navigated these obstacles carefully, demonstrating just enough skill to progress without revealing his full capabilities. When Ron sacrificed himself in the chess game, getting knocked unconscious, Harry felt an unexpected surge of concern that went beyond mission parameters. "He'll be all right," Hermione assured him, though she looked shaken. "Let's keep going," Harry said, pushing aside the disquieting emotion. After passing Snape's logic puzzle, only Hermione could continue with Harry, but there was only enough potion for one person to move forward through the flames. "You drink that," said Harry, pointing to the bottle that would send her back. "Get Ron, grab brooms from the Flying Key room, and use them to get out of the trapdoor. Go straight to the Ollery and send Hedwig to Dumbledore. I might be able to hold Quirrell off for a while, but I'm no match for him, really." "But Harry, what if you know who's with him?" "Well, I was lucky once, wasn't I?" Harry pointed at his scar. "I might get lucky again." Hermione's lip trembled, and she suddenly dashed at Harry and threw her arms around him. "Hermione. Harry, you're a great wizard, you know." "Not as good as you," Harry replied automatically, uncomfortable with her emotional display yet strangely moved by it. "Me. Books. And cleverness. There are more important things, friendship and bravery and, oh Harry, be careful." After she left, Harry drank the potion that would allow him to pass through the black flames. His department training took over, pushing all emotion aside. He entered the final chamber prepared for combat, his senses heightened, his magic ready to deploy at levels far beyond what a first year should possess. As expected, he found Quirrell examining the mirror of Eriste. "I wondered whether I'd be meeting you here, Potter," Quirrell said, his usual stutter gone. "I suspected it was you," Harry replied calmly. Quirrell laughed, cold and sharp. "Yes, Severus does seem the type, doesn't he? Next to him, who would suspect P.P. Poor, St. stuttering P. Professor Quirrell?" Harry's scar blazed with pain as Quirrell snapped his fingers, binding Harry with magical ropes. The department operative in him analyzed the spell, identifying multiple weaknesses he could exploit to escape. But his mission was observation, not confrontation. He needed to gather intelligence on Voldemort's current state before the extraction team arrived. "Now, wait quietly, Potter. I need to examine this interesting mirror." As Quirrell talked to himself about the mirror, Harry realized the final protection was Dumbledore's design. The mirror of Eriste had been modified to hide the stone where only someone who wanted to find it, but not use it, could retrieve it. "I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master, but where is it?" "Use the boy." Came a high, cold voice that seemed to emanate from Quirrell himself. "Yes, Potter, come here." The ropes fell away. Harry approached the mirror cautiously, reinforcing his occlumency shields. He knew what he had to do, appear to help while gathering intelligence on Voldemort's condition. Standing before the mirror, Harry saw his reflection smile at him. It put its hand into its pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone. Then, impossibly, the stone transferred to Harry's actual pocket. He had obtained the Philosopher's Stone. Well? Quirrell demanded impatiently. What do you see? Harry crafted a lie instantly. I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore. I've won the House Cup for Gryffindor. He lies. Came the cold voice again. Let me speak to him, face to face. Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough, for this. Harry watched in horrified fascination as Quirrell unwrapped his turban, revealing a face protruding from the back of his head, chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. Harry Potter. It whispered. See what I have become. Mere shadow and vapor. I have form only when I can share another's body, but there have always been those willing to let me into their hearts and minds. Unicorn blood has strengthened me, these past weeks. Once I have the elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Harry's analytical mind raced even as his scar threatened to split his head with pain. This was unprecedented information, Voldemort existing as a parasitic entity, capable of possession. The department would consider this intelligence invaluable. Don't be a fool, Voldemort continued. Better to save your own life and join me, or you'll meet the same end as your parents. They died begging me for mercy. Liar. Harry shouted, genuine rage breaking through his training. How touching. Voldemort hissed. I always value bravery. Yes, boy, your parents were brave. I killed your father first, and he put up a courageous fight, but your mother needn't have died, she was trying to protect you. Now give me the stone, unless you want her to have died in vain. Never. Harry backed away, prepared to fight. Seize him. Voldemort screamed, and Quirrell lunged forward. The moment Quirrell's hand made contact with Harry's skin, both screamed in agony. Quirrell's flesh blistered where it touched Harry, while Harry's scar erupted in blinding pain. Through the haze of agony, Harry's department training clicked into place. This unexpected protection, Quirrell couldn't physically touch him without suffering injury, was a weapon. Harry grabbed Quirrell's face with both hands, forcing contact despite the excruciating pain in his scar. Quirrell shrieked and tried to throw Harry off. Voldemort screamed, "Kill him! Kill him!" But Harry held on, pushing through the pain, applying pressure points that Rookwood had taught him to maximize the damage. As Quirrell collapsed and Harry's vision began to darken, he was vaguely aware of another presence entering the chamber. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was a flash of silver beard and the furious face of Albus Dumbledore. Harry awoke in the hospital wing, surrounded by sweets and cards from well-wishers. His body ached, but his mind was immediately alert, assessing his situation and recalling the confrontation with Quirrell. "Good afternoon, Harry," said Dumbledore, sitting beside his bed. Harry blinked, quickly adopting his cover persona. "Sir." "The stone." It was Quirrell. "He's got the stone. Calm yourself, dear boy, or Madame Pomfrey will have me thrown out. Quirrell does not have the stone." "Then who does?" "Sir, Harry, please relax, or Madame Pomfrey really will have me removed." Harry forced himself to lie back, though his mind was racing. Had the department's extraction team arrived? Had Dumbledore secured the stone? How much did the headmaster suspect about Harry's true abilities? Dumbledore explained how he had arrived in time to pull Quirrell off Harry, how the stone had been destroyed with Nicholas Flamel's blessing, and most interestingly, how Harry's mother's sacrifice had left a protection in his very skin. "Voldemort couldn't touch you for this reason." It was agony to touch a person marked by something so good. Harry absorbed this information, recognizing its significance. The department had theorized about ancient blood magic, but this confirmation of its effectiveness against Voldemort was critical intelligence. "And sir, there's one more thing." Harry carefully crafted his question. "Voldemort's going to try other ways of coming back, isn't he?" I mean, he hasn't gone, has he? No, Harry, he has not. He is still out there somewhere, perhaps looking for another body to share, not being truly alive, he cannot be killed. After Dumbledore left, Harry carefully processed everything he'd learned. The confrontation had revealed critical information about Voldemort's current form, his methods, and most importantly, the protection Harry carried in his blood. That night, when the hospital wing was dark and quiet, Harry retrieved his enchanted journal from where Hermione had thought to bring it with his other belongings. His report was comprehensive, detailing Voldemort's parasitic existence, the blood protection, and the stone's destruction. The response was immediate and unusually emotional for the department. Critical intelligence successfully acquired. Your actions preserved cover while gathering essential data on V's current form. Blood protection unexpected and significant. Return to department immediately after term ends for full debriefing. Extraction team stood down after D's arrival. Mission outcome classified as success despite S destruction. See 3 days later, Harry joined the end-of-year feast, where Dumbledore awarded last-minute points to Gryffindor for the adventure with the stone, securing them the House Cup. As his housemates celebrated around him, Harry maintained his cover of youthful excitement while inwardly contemplating the complexities of his position. He had successfully completed his first mission, gathering intelligence on Voldemort that the department deemed invaluable. Yet he'd also formed connections, with Ron and Hermione, with his fellow Gryffindors, even with Hagrid, that went beyond mission parameters. And most disturbingly, he'd experienced emotions that years of department conditioning hadn't prepared him for, genuine concern for his friends, rage at Voldemort's taunts about his parents, and that strange moment of longing before the mirror of Erist. As the Hogwarts Express carried them back to London, Ron and Hermione chatted excitedly about the coming summer. They extracted promises from Harry to write, unaware that he would soon be back in the department's windowless chambers, undergoing intensive debriefing and preparation for whatever mission came next. You must come and stay this summer, said Ron. Both of you. I'll send an owl. Thanks, said Harry. I'll need something to look forward to. At King's Cross, Harry hugged Hermione and shook Ron's hand, playing the part of a normal student sad to leave his friends. As they departed with their families, Harry moved to a pre-arranged meeting point where Rookwood, disguised as a Muggle businessman, was waiting. Successful mission, Potter, Rookwood said quietly as they walked toward the designated apparition point. Croaker is pleased. Thank you, sir, Harry replied automatically. But there's a complication. Rookwood's voice dropped even lower. The department has detected unusual energy fluctuations in the Veil Chamber. They appear to be responding to your magical signature, even at this distance. Harry frowned. What does that mean? It means, Rookwood said as they reached the secluded spot for apparition, that your next mission may be even more critical than this one. The Department of Mysteries didn't just choose you as a weapon against Voldemort, Potter. Your connection goes deeper than anyone suspected. Before Harry could ask for clarification, Rookwood gripped his arm, and they disappeared with a crack. When they reappeared in the circular entrance chamber of the department, Harry immediately sensed something different. The air thrummed with magical energy, and the doors seemed to pulse in sync with his heartbeat. Croaker was waiting, his face more solemn than Harry had ever seen it. Welcome back, Potter. Your Hogwarts mission exceeded expectations. Thank you, sir. But now we face a greater challenge. Croaker gestured to one of the doors, which swung open to reveal the Veil Chamber. While you were confronting what remains of Voldemort, something else was awakening. Something connected to you in ways we're only beginning to understand. In the center of the chamber, the ancient stone archway stood as it always had, its tattered veil fluttering despite the absence of wind. But now, visible within its depths, Harry could see faint, glowing symbols that pulsed in rhythm with his own heartbeat. What is it? Harry asked, feeling a strange resonance with the archway that he'd never experienced before. That, Potter, Croaker said grimly, is what you're going to help us discover. Your next mission begins now. Chapter 3, depths and heights. The veil pulsed with an eerie rhythm that matched Harry's heartbeat. Standing in the stone chamber, he felt a strange connection to the ancient archway, like recognizing someone you've never actually met. It started responding the moment you confronted Voldemort at Hogwarts, Croaker explained, moving around the archway with the careful precision of someone approaching an unpredictable animal. The energy signature spiked dramatically, creating patterns we've never recorded before. Harry stepped closer, drawn by an inexplicable pull. What exactly is the veil? That's the fundamental question of our division, Elara said, entering the chamber with a stack of parchments. The department's been studying it for centuries. We know it's a boundary between life and death, but it's more complex than that. Rookwood circled to Harry's other side. Most who approach it hear whispers, voices of the dead calling from beyond. What do you hear, Potter? Harry listened intently. Unlike the murmuring others had described, he heard something different, a sound like distant music, haunting yet somehow familiar. Not voices, he admitted. Music, and something else, like a language I should understand but can't quite grasp. The three unspeakables exchanged significant glances. That's unprecedented, Croaker murmured, making notes on a floating parchment. In all our records, subjects consistently report whispers or voices, never music. What does it mean? Harry asked. We don't know yet, Elara replied, handing Croaker the stack of parchments. But these readings indicate your magical signature shares fundamental frequencies with the veil's energy patterns. Which explains why it responds to you, Rookwood added. The question is why. Croaker gestured for Harry to follow him out of the chamber. Your mission at Hogwarts provided critical intelligence on Voldemort's current form and capabilities. But it also accelerated whatever connection exists between you and the veil. Back in the familiar briefing room, Harry found Director Erebus waiting. Unlike the other unspeakables, Erebus rarely interacted with Harry directly. Tall and imposing with silver-streaked black hair and eyes so dark they appeared pupilless, the director oversaw the department's most classified projects. Potter, he acknowledged with a slight nod. Your performance at Hogwarts was adequate. From Erebus, this constituted high praise. The Quirrell-Voldemort parasitic bond is particularly interesting, Erebus continued, reviewing Harry's mission reports. A manifestation technique we hadn't considered. And the blood protection. He tapped the parchment thoughtfully. Ancient magic, activated through sacrifice. Powerful, if limited in application. Harry waited silently, sensing there was more. But most significant, Erebus said, looking up with those bottomless eyes, is the veil's response to your magical output during the confrontation. It suggests connections that align with certain theories we've been developing. What theories? Harry asked. Erebus smiled thinly. All in good time. For now, your summer training will focus on two areas, expanding your magical sensitivity to detect Voldemort's presence more accurately, and controlled exposure to the veil to map its reactions to your magic. Harry nodded, though inwardly he felt a flicker of unease. The director's interest in his connection to the veil seemed more personal than scientific. And what about next year at Hogwarts? Harry asked. Will I continue as your operative? Of course, Croaker interjected. Your position there is invaluable. Dumbledore suspects nothing beyond an unusually talented boy who survived extraordinary circumstances. Your cover remains intact. Harry considered this. And my friends? Ron and Hermione? Something flickered across Elara's face at the question. Maintain those connections. They provide excellent cover and access to information. The way she phrased it, clinical, strategic, didn't match the reality of what Harry had experienced with Ron and Hermione. They weren't just assets or covers. They were something else. Something the department hadn't prepared him for. Your training begins tomorrow, Rookwood concluded. Rest tonight. You'll need your strength. Later, alone in his department quarters, unchanged since he'd left for Hogwarts, Harry processed everything he'd learned. The connection to the Veil, Voldemort's parasitic existence, Erebus's cryptic theories, puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit together yet. As he drifted off to sleep, Harry realized something that would have horrified the younger version of himself who'd first arrived at the department. For the first time, he was questioning their motives. Harry's body slammed into the training room floor, the breath knocked from his lungs. Before he could recover, Rookwood was already attacking again, magical energy crackling toward him. Rolling aside, Harry whipped his hand up, conjuring a wandless shield that deflected the spell into the reinforced wall. In the same motion, he thrust his other hand forward, sending a concussive blast of magic that forced Rookwood back 3 steps. Better, the unspeakable acknowledged, barely winded despite the intense combat session. But still too reactive. Anticipate, don't just respond. 2 weeks into summer training, and Rookwood had pushed Harry harder than ever before. Combat drills that once lasted minutes now continued for hours. Magical theory sessions delved into obscure branches of power that most adult wizards never encountered. And then there were the Veil sessions. 3 times weekly, Harry spent hours in the Veil chamber, performing specific magical exercises while Alara and a team of researchers measured the archway's reactions. With each session, the music he heard grew clearer, more complex, though still tantalizingly beyond comprehension. The frequencies are aligning, Alara reported during one such session, monitoring instruments Harry couldn't begin to identify. Harry, try casting a Patronus. This was a new spell they'd introduced last week, advanced magic far beyond typical 12-year-old capabilities. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on his chosen memory, not something from the department, but the moment at Hogwarts when Ron and Hermione had rushed to hug him after he awoke in the hospital wing. Expecto Patronum, he called, channeling the warmth of that memory. Silver mist erupted from his outstretched hand, coalescing into a brilliant stag that cantered around the chamber. As it passed near the Veil, the archway pulsed with increased intensity, the fluttering curtain billowing as if in a strong wind. Remarkable, murmured one of the researchers. The harmonic resonance is nearly perfect. Harry maintained the Patronus, watching as the silver stag seemed drawn to the Veil, circling it curiously. For a moment, he thought he saw matching silver light flickering within the archway itself. That's enough, Alara said suddenly, making a sharp gesture. End the spell, Harry. He dropped the Patronus, noting the tension that had appeared in Alara's posture. What happened? What did you see? Something unexpected. She was already reviewing the measurement instruments, her expression troubled. We need to analyze these readings before continuing. Later that evening, passing the main briefing room, Harry overheard raised voices. Pausing in the shadows, using the stealth techniques Rookwood had drilled into him, he listened. Completely unprecedented. That was Croaker, sounding more agitated than Harry had ever heard him. The Veil was responding to his Patronus as if recognizing it, Erebus's deep voice finished. Exactly as my theory predicted. The boy's magical signature contains elements that resonate with the Veil's fundamental nature. It's too dangerous, Alara argued. We don't understand the implications. If something went wrong, nothing will go wrong because we'll proceed with appropriate caution, Erebus cut her off. The department has studied the Veil for centuries without breakthrough. Potter represents our first real opportunity to understand what lies beyond. He's just a boy, Alara said quietly. Erebus laughed, a cold sound devoid of humor. He hasn't been just a boy since Voldemort marked him. And the department has invested too much in his development to hesitate now. What exactly are you proposing? Rookwood asked, his tone neutral. A controlled immersion. Not physical passage through the Veil, we know that's fatal, but a magical connection. Potter's proven capacity for legilimency combined with his unique resonance might allow him to perceive what exists on the other side without physically crossing. The risks, Alara began, are acceptable given the potential knowledge gained, Erebus interrupted. Prepare the chamber for the procedure. 3 days from now. Harry slipped away silently, mind racing. The department was planning something dangerous involving him and the Veil. Something they hadn't bothered to explain to him directly. For the first time since leaving the Dursleys, Harry felt a cold weight of fear in his stomach. Not fear of danger, his training had largely eliminated that, but fear that perhaps the department's interest in him was more complex and less benevolent than he'd believed. That night, Harry did something unprecedented. He used his department-issued communication mirror to contact someone unauthorized. Focusing on the connection he'd established during the school year, he whispered, "Hermione Granger." The mirror's surface rippled, then cleared to show Hermione's startled face. "Harry? Is that you? How are you doing this?" "Special mirror," Harry replied tersely. "Listen, I don't have much time. I need information." "What kind of information?" she asked, immediately shifting to problem-solving mode, one of the qualities he genuinely valued about her. "Ancient magical gateways. Specifically, veils or archways that might connect to death, or beyond death." Hermione's eyes widened. "That's really obscure magic, Harry. And dangerous. Why do you need to know?" Harry hesitated, then made a decision. "I can't explain everything now. But I'm involved in research this summer that might be riskier than I was told. I need to understand what I'm dealing with." "I'll see what I can find," Hermione promised. "My parents are taking me to France next week, and they have some of the oldest magical libraries in Europe. But Harry, please be careful." "I always am," he replied with a forced smile. "And Hermione? Don't tell anyone about this. Not even Ron." After ending the connection, Harry stared at the mirror, processing what he'd just done. He'd broken protocol, reached out to an unauthorized contact, and essentially begun operating independently from department control. The realization should have horrified the weapon they'd crafted. Instead, it felt like taking his first real breath. The morning of the controlled immersion arrived before Hermione could provide any useful information. Harry entered the Veil chamber to find it transformed. The usual research instruments had multiplied, surrounding the archway in concentric circles. Runes glowed on the floor in patterns Harry recognized from his advanced magical theory sessions, containment symbols, power amplifiers, and most concerningly, several meant to bind a subject in place. Director Erebus stood at the center of the activity, issuing instructions to a team of unspeakables Harry had never seen before. Croaker hovered nearby, his expression uncharacteristically worried. Rookwood maintained his usual impassive demeanor, though Harry detected subtle tension in his posture. "Ah, Potter. Right on schedule." Erebus gestured him forward. "Today represents a significant advancement in our research." "What exactly am I doing?" Harry asked, keeping his voice neutral despite his growing unease. "A form of magical perception," Erebus explained, leading him toward the archway. "You'll establish a legitimacy connection with the Veil itself, allowing your consciousness to perceive what exists beyond while your physical form remains safely here." Harry glanced at Alara, who wouldn't meet his eyes. "Has anyone done this before?" "You are uniquely qualified," Erebus replied, which wasn't an answer. "Your magical signature's resonance with the Veil makes this possible." As an unspeakable guided Harry to a position directly before the archway, he noticed something disturbing. The runes on the floor weren't just for containment and amplification, some were variants of binding spells he'd studied with Rookwood, designed to prevent the subject from breaking a magical connection once established. They weren't just sending him to observe. They were ensuring he couldn't pull back. "The procedure is straightforward," Erebus continued, either unaware of or unconcerned by Harry's realization. "You'll enter a legitimacy trance focused on the Veil. We'll amplify the connection through these runic arrays. Your task is simply to observe and remember what you perceive." Harry nodded, already formulating contingencies. His occlumency training might provide some protection if things went wrong. And he'd been practicing wandless magic that could disrupt the runic patterns if necessary, though using such magic against the department would cross a line he hadn't yet been prepared to cross. "Begin," Erebus commanded. Harry focused on the veil, its tattered curtain fluttering hypnotically. The distant music he'd always heard grew louder as he stared, resolving into complex harmonies that seemed to call to something deep within him. Extending his consciousness as he'd been trained, Harry initiated the legilimency connection. Immediately, the music enveloped him, no longer distant but surrounding, embracing. The chamber around him faded as the veil expanded in his perception, no longer an archway but an infinite doorway. And beyond. Voices. Thousands of voices, not whispering but singing in that strange, familiar language. Shapes moved in endless mist, not ghosts, but something more substantial, more real somehow than the world he'd left behind. Harry Potter. A voice distinct from the chorus, speaking directly to his mind. "You do not belong here yet. But we have been waiting. Who are you?" Harry tried to ask, though he had no physical voice here. "We are those who came before. Those who understood the true nature of magic. Those who created the gateways between worlds." Emotions not his own flowed through Harry, ancient sorrow, endless patience, and something like anticipation. "The one who sent you seeks knowledge, but understands nothing. He would use you as a bridge, not knowing a bridge works in both directions." Images flashed through Harry's consciousness, Erebus standing before an older version of the veil, surrounded by symbols that made Harry's mind recoil, a younger Voldemort discovering ancient texts that mentioned the gateway, a ritual involving sacrifice and forbidden magic. "There is a reason he cannot hear us. There is a reason you can. Your mother's sacrifice did more than protect you from the fractured one. It awakened something that has slumbered in your bloodline for generations." The music swelled, and Harry felt himself being pulled deeper. Warning signals flashed through his trained mind, he was going too far, losing connection with his physical form. He tried to pull back, only to encounter the binding magic Erebus had placed around him. He would trap you between worlds to serve as his instrument. This cannot be permitted. The music changed, becoming sharper, more focused. Harry felt something within the veil reach out, not to him but through him, targeting the runic bindings. One by one, they flared and faded, the containment failing. "Return now, Harry Potter. But know this, what was awakened cannot be quieted again. What was begun must find completion. We will be waiting when you are ready to understand." With a violent surge of magic, Harry was thrust back into his body, collapsing onto the stone floor of the chamber. Alarms blared as instruments overloaded and shattered. The runic circles glowed blinding white before burning out entirely. "What happened?" Erebus demanded, striding toward Harry with fury in his bottomless eyes. "What did you see?" But Harry couldn't answer. His mind struggled to process what he'd experienced, the knowledge already fading like a dream upon waking. He remembered the music, the sense of ancient presence, the warning about Erebus, but the details slipped away, leaving only impressions and emotions. "The containment failed," Croker reported, examining the burned-out runes. "Something disrupted the binding patterns from within the connection." "Impossible," Erebus snapped. "Nothing can affect magic from beyond the veil." "Evidently something can," Rookwood observed dryly, helping Harry to his feet. "The boy appears unharmed, but we should conduct full diagnostics." Harry let himself be led away for examination, maintaining a facade of confusion and disorientation that wasn't entirely feigned. As Alara ran magical scans, checking for any negative effects from the interrupted procedure, he sorted through what he could still remember. Erebus wanted to use him as some kind of bridge to the veil. His mother's sacrifice had awakened something in his bloodline. And whatever existed beyond the veil had intervened to protect him. "Your magical core is showing unusual fluctuations," Alara reported, frowning at her instruments. "Nothing dangerous, but different from your baseline." "Is that bad?" Harry asked, deliberately sounding worried. "Not necessarily. Just, unexpected." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Harry, what did you experience in there? What did you see? Harry met her eyes, sensing genuine concern rather than professional curiosity. Music, he said truthfully. And a presence that felt ancient. It said Erebus doesn't understand what he's doing with the veil. Elara paled slightly. You heard direct communication? Yes. It said I have some connection to the veil through my bloodline. That my mother's sacrifice awakened something. She glanced toward the door, ensuring they weren't overheard. Harry, the director's interest in the veil goes beyond standard research. He believes it contains power that can be harnessed, controlled. No one has ever reported direct communication from beyond before. What does he want with me? Harry asked bluntly. Elara looked conflicted, loyalty to the department warring with growing concern. I'm not entirely sure anymore, she admitted finally. The official mission remains preparing you to confront Voldemort. But the director's focus has shifted increasingly toward your connection to the veil. Before she could continue, the door opened and Rookwood entered. Croaker wants a full debriefing, he announced. The director is displeased with the procedure's failure. Harry nodded, carefully constructing mental walls around the most crucial memories from the veil. His occlumency training had originally been intended to protect department secrets from external threats. Now, ironically, he was using it to protect secrets from the department itself. In the debriefing, Harry provided a sanitized version of his experience, enough truth to be credible, omitting the warnings about Erebus and the deliberate intervention from the presence beyond the veil. Throughout, he maintained the demeanor of a slightly shaken but dutiful operative, giving no hint of his growing suspicions or independent thoughts. Remarkable nonetheless, Croaker concluded after Harry finished. The first confirmed communication with whatever consciousness exists beyond the veil. Even this limited contact represents a breakthrough in our understanding. Erebus remained silent throughout, his dark eyes fixed on Harry with an intensity that would have unnerved him years earlier. Now, Harry met that gaze with carefully constructed innocence, betraying nothing of his inner thoughts. We'll need to redesign the containment protocols before attempting another connection, Erebus said finally. The boy needs recovery time, Rookwood interjected. His magical core shows fluctuations that should stabilize before any further procedures. Of course, Erebus conceded too easily. A week of rest, then we'll proceed with modified protocols. Harry maintained his neutral expression, but internally, a decision crystallized. He wouldn't be here in a week. Whatever Erebus planned, whatever connection existed between Harry and the veil, he needed time to understand it on his own terms, away from the department's control. That night, after the department had settled into its night cycle, Harry enacted the plan he'd been formulating since the failed procedure. Using wandless magic to disable the monitoring charms on his quarters, he packed essential items into a small bag with an undetectable extension charm, another bit of advanced magic the department had taught him for future missions. The communication mirror warmed in his pocket. Activating it, he found Hermione's worried face. Harry. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Are you alright? I'm fine, he whispered. Did you find anything about the veil? Yes, but not much. There's a medieval text that mentions the great archway between worlds created by ancient wizards called the Peverils. It says the archway was meant to allow communication with the dead, but something went wrong. The text is fragmentary, but it mentions those with the blood of the creators being able to hear the music of the spheres instead of whispers. Harry's pulse quickened. The Peverils. A connection through bloodlines. It matched what the presence had told him. I need to leave where I am, he told Hermione. Can you meet me tomorrow at the Leaky Cauldron? Noon. Hermione looked startled. Harry, what's happening? Are you in danger? I'll explain everything when I see you. Please, Hermione. Of course I'll be there, she promised. But Harry, I have to go. Tomorrow, noon. He deactivated the mirror before she could ask more questions. Slipping from his quarters, Harry navigated the department's night-shadowed corridors using every stealth technique Rookwood had taught him. The irony wasn't lost on him, escaping using skills they'd instilled. The department's security was formidable but designed primarily to keep people out, not in. Using his intimate knowledge of the systems and his unique magical signature, which many wards recognized as authorized, Harry made his way toward the exit portal. He was nearly there when a quiet voice stopped him. I wondered how long it would take. Harry turned to find Rookwood leaning against a wall in the shadows, arms crossed casually as if he'd been expecting this moment. Sir, Harry acknowledged, tensing for confrontation. To his surprise, Rookwood merely nodded. The department made a fundamental error with you, Potter. We treated you as a weapon to be forged rather than a person to be guided. Weapons don't ask questions. People do. Are you going to stop me? Harry asked directly. No. Rookwood straightened, regarding Harry with something almost like pride. You've learned enough to make your own decisions. Including when to leave. Harry studied his mentor, searching for deception and finding none. Erebus will blame you. Let him. Rookwood reached into his robes and withdrew a small pouch. Expanded capacity, like your bag. Contains emergency supplies, funds, and some items you might find useful. The tracking charms are disabled. Cautiously, Harry accepted the pouch. Why are you helping me? For a moment, something like regret flickered across Rookwood's usually impassive face. Because Erebus has lost perspective. The Veil research has consumed him. And because. He hesitated. Because I've watched you grow from a frightened child into someone capable of making choices I never could. What does that mean? It means I joined the department believing in its mission, only to find myself unable to question it when that mission changed. You're stronger than that. Rookwood stepped aside, clearing Harry's path to the exit. Go. Find your own answers. What about you? I'll handle the consequences. A ghost of a smile touched Rookwood's lips. They trained you well, Potter. But perhaps not exactly as they intended. Harry nodded, suddenly understanding that this moment represented a choice for Rookwood too, perhaps his first real act of independence within the department's rigid structure. Thank you, sir, he said quietly. Rookwood's only response was a slight incline of his head as Harry slipped past him and through the exit portal, emerging into the Midnight Quiet Ministry atrium. Freedom. And with it, a weight of uncertainty he'd never experienced in the department's structured environment. But as Harry made his way out of the ministry and into the London night, that uncertainty felt strangely like possibility. The Leaky Cauldron's noon crowd provided perfect cover, busy enough that an additional young wizard wouldn't draw attention, yet not so packed that private conversation was impossible. Harry sat in a corner booth, nursing a butterbeer while maintaining constant vigilance for department operatives or other threats. He spotted Hermione the moment she entered, her bushy hair distinctive even in the magical pub's eclectic clientele. She scanned the room anxiously until her eyes found him, relief washing over her features. Harry, she exclaimed, sliding into the booth opposite him. I was so worried. What's happened? Where have you been staying? Your letter said you were with family in America, but then that mirror call, and now, Hermione, Harry interrupted gently, I need to tell you something important, but you have to promise to listen completely before reacting. She blinked, then nodded seriously. Of course. Harry cast a wandless privacy charm around their booth, nothing obvious enough to draw attention, just enough to prevent casual eavesdropping. Then, making a decision that would have been unthinkable months earlier, he told her everything. The Department of Mysteries. His extraction from the Dursleys at age 7. The years of training. His mission at Hogwarts. The Veil research. Erebus's plans. His escape. Throughout, Hermione's eyes grew progressively wider, her expression cycling through shock, horror, anger, and finally, determined resolve. So everything, our friendship, all of it, was just part of your mission?" she asked when he finished, hurt evident in her voice. "It started that way," Harry admitted. "But it became real, Hermione. You and Ron were the first real friends I've ever had. That's why I contacted you when I realized something was wrong." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I believe you. And it explains so much, how you sometimes seem to know magic beyond first-year level, how you handled the stone confrontation so calmly. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you before." "Well, you're telling me now," she said practically. "The question is, what do we do about it? The department will be looking for you." "I know. But I need time to understand what's happening with the Veil connection before I face them again." Harry leaned forward. "The information you found about the Peverils is crucial. I need to learn more about them and how they might connect to my family." "We'll need help," Hermione decided. "Research materials, a safe place to stay, and honestly, Harry, someone adult who can advise us." "Not Dumbledore," Harry said quickly. "The department's right about one thing, he has his own agenda for me." Hermione bit her lip, thinking. What about the Weasleys? Ron's parents were part of the resistance against Voldemort, and they seem like good people. Harry considered this. The department files on Arthur and Molly Weasley painted them as fiercely protective of family and steadfastly opposed to dark magic. If anyone might help without immediately turning him over to Dumbledore or the Ministry, it would be them. "We'll need to approach them carefully," he said finally. "And I'll need to convince Ron I'm still his friend too. That shouldn't be hard. He's been writing to me all summer, wondering why you haven't answered his letters." Hermione smiled slightly. "He's convinced your American relatives are as awful as the Dursleys." For the first time in days, Harry felt something like hope. "Can you contact Ron? Tell him we need to meet his parents, but it has to be private. Very private." "I'll send an owl immediately," Hermione promised. "Where are you staying until then?" "I've got a room here," Harry replied. "Paid in advance for a week, under a different name." Hermione's practical nature took over. "Right. I'll go send that owl, then we should make a research plan. If the Peverils are connected to your family, there might be records at Gringotts. And we'll need to understand more about this veil and why Director Erebus is so obsessed with it." As Hermione hurried off to the Diagon Alley post office, Harry marveled at how quickly she'd accepted his story and shifted to problem-solving mode. The department had identified her intelligence as useful for his cover, but they'd underestimated her loyalty and determination. They'd underestimated a lot of things about the connections he'd formed at Hogwarts. 2 days later, an excited Errol, the Weasley's ancient owl, delivered a letter from Ron. "Harry, Hermione told me some mental stuff about where you've really been. Don't know if I believe all of it, but Dad says you can come to the Burrow and explain yourself. We'll pick you up tomorrow night at the Leaky. Dad says to tell you he's coming alone and you can bring verification, whatever that means. This better be good, mate." Harry smiled at the note's typically direct tone. Ron had every right to be skeptical. The truth sounded absurd even to Harry sometimes, and he'd lived it. For the verification, Harry prepared a small vial of memory that could be viewed in a pensieve, a simple recollection of a department training session with Rookwood that would prove his story without revealing sensitive information. It was a technique he'd learned for mission reporting, now repurposed for his own ends. Arthur Weasley arrived precisely at the arranged time, looking both concerned and curious. A tall, balding man with kind eyes, he bore little resemblance to the department's file description of a wizard with more principles than sense, dangerous only in his unwavering loyalty to Dumbledore. "Harry," he greeted solemnly. "Ron and Hermione have told us quite a tale." "It's all true, Mr. Weasley," Harry replied. "I brought this as proof." He offered the memory vial. Arthur examined it carefully. "We have a small pensieve at home, Ministry issue for my work. We'll look at this there." He studied Harry's face. "Are you in danger, son?" The genuine concern in his voice caught Harry off guard. I'm not sure, he answered honestly. But I need to understand some things before I can decide what to do next. Well then, Arthur said simply, let's get you somewhere safe while you figure it out. The journey to the burrow via sidelong apparition brought Harry to a home unlike any he'd ever experienced, warm, chaotic, and vibrating with the energy of a large family. The ramshackle house looked as if it were held together by magic alone, which, Harry soon learned, it largely was. Molly Weasley, a plump, kind-faced woman with Ron's red hair, enveloped Harry in a fierce hug the moment he arrived. "You poor dear," she murmured. "Arthur told me some of what's happened. You'll stay right here until we sort this out." The kitchen was crowded with redheads, Ron looking awkward but relieved, the twins Fred and George eyeing Harry with newfound respect, Percy maintaining a disapproving expression that suggested he considered Harry's situation somehow improper, and a small girl who could only be Ron's sister, staring at Harry with wide eyes before fleeing the room in embarrassment. "That's Ginny," Ron explained. "She's been talking about meeting you all summer. Bit of a shock to have you turn up in our kitchen." After a hasty meal, during which Harry felt more genuine warmth than he'd experienced in years at the department, Arthur led him, Molly, and Ron to a small study. Hermione arrived minutes later via Floo, clutching a stack of books. "I told my parents I'm researching magical history with friends," she explained. "Which is technically true." Arthur removed a stone basin from a locked cabinet, the pensive. "Show us, Harry." Harry placed the memory inside, and they all viewed the brief scene of 12-year-old Harry training with Rookwood, practicing wandless shield charms against increasingly powerful magical attacks. When they emerged, the adults looked shaken. "They've been training you as a weapon since you were 7. Molly's voice trembled with barely contained fury. "That's not standard department procedure," Arthur said gravely. "I've worked with Unspeakables on various projects. They're secretive, yes, but this, training a child for combat, this is unprecedented. They said I'm connected to Voldemort through my scar," Harry explained, noting how everyone except Hermione flinched at the name. "And now they think I have some connection to an artifact called the Veil through my bloodline." "The Veil?" Arthur looked alarmed. "That's one of the department's most dangerous research areas. It's said to be a gateway to the afterlife itself." Hermione opened one of her books to a marked page. "I found references to the Veil's creation. It was made by 3 wizard brothers, the Peverils, in an attempt to communicate with the dead. The same brothers from the Tale of the Three Brothers." "That's just a children's story," Ron objected. "Many wizarding tales have basis in historical fact," Arthur mused. "The Peverils were a real family, though they died out centuries ago, or rather, the name did. The bloodlines continued through daughters who married into other families." Harry leaned forward. "Which families?" "Several of the oldest lines. The Gaunts, the Blacks." Arthur hesitated. "And yes, the Potters. Your father's genealogy traces back to Ignotus Peveril, the youngest brother." There it was, confirmation of the blood connection the Veil had mentioned. Harry felt a chill of recognition. So when the Veil told me my mother's sacrifice awakened something in my bloodline, it might have activated some dormant magical connection to the Veil itself, Hermione finished. "But Harry, what does Director Erebus want with this connection?" "Power," Harry said simply. "The presence in the Veil said he wants to use me as a bridge to access whatever's on the other side." Molly paled. "That's not just unethical, it's incredibly dangerous. The boundary between life and death isn't meant to be manipulated." "We need to contact Dumbledore," Arthur decided. "No," Harry said sharply, then moderated his tone. "I'm sorry, Mr. Weasley, but I don't trust Dumbledore either. He left me with the Dursleys. He has his own plans for me, connected to the prophecy about Voldemort and me." Arthur and Molly exchanged troubled glances. "What prophecy?" Arthur asked. Harry recited the words that had shaped his entire life, "The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the seventh month dies. As he finished, the room fell silent. So that's why you know who came after your parents, Ron said quietly. And why the department wants you as their weapon. Yes. Harry met Arthur's eyes. I know I'm asking a lot, but I need time to understand what's happening before I face either the department or Dumbledore again. After a long pause, Arthur nodded. You can stay here, Harry. The Burrow isn't as magically protected as Hogwarts or the Ministry, but we have our own defenses. And perhaps. He seemed to be considering something. Perhaps there's someone else who might help us understand the Peveril connection without involving Dumbledore directly. Who? Hermione asked eagerly. My oldest son, Bill. He's a curse breaker for Gringotts, specializing in ancient magic. If anyone can help untangle this bloodline connection, it would be him. Arthur smiled slightly. And he's always had a healthy skepticism about authority, ministerial or otherwise. For the first time since fleeing the department, Harry felt like he might actually find answers rather than just escape questions. Thank you, he said simply. All of you. Ron clapped him on the shoulder awkwardly. Don't mention it, mate. Though next time you're secretly a trained magical operative, maybe give your friends a hint. Despite everything, Harry laughed. It felt surprisingly good. Life at the Burrow was a revelation. After the department's sterile precision and Hogwarts' structured environment, the organized chaos of the Weasley household was both disorienting and oddly freeing. Harry shared Ron's room, helping with chores alongside the other children, playing impromptu Quidditch matches in the orchard, and for the first time, experiencing what a normal wizarding childhood might have been like. Bill Weasley arrived 3 days later, a tall, cool-looking wizard with long hair tied in a ponytail, a fawn earring, and the weathered look of someone who worked outdoors. He listened to Harry's story without interruption, asked several incisive questions about the Veil and what Harry had experienced beyond it, then disappeared into Arthur's study with several ancient-looking texts from his own collection. While they waited for Bill's research, Harry continued his own practice in secret, maintaining the magical disciplines the department had taught him, but now for his own purposes rather than theirs. Every morning before the household woke, he slipped into the orchard to practice wandless magic, occlumency, and the combat forms Rookwood had drilled into him. Ron caught him at it one morning, watching silently until Harry finished a particularly complex sequence of spells. So that's what they taught you, he said, making Harry jump slightly. Part of it, Harry admitted, lowering his hands. The department believed in thorough training. Ron kicked at a fallen apple thoughtfully. Must be weird, having all that knowledge stuffed into your head before you even got to Hogwarts. It is, Harry agreed. But in a way, Hogwarts was weirder. Learning to act like I didn't know things I'd mastered years ago. Pretending to be normal. Were you pretending with us too? Ron asked, the real question finally emerging. With me and Hermione? Harry met his friend's eyes directly. At first, yes. You were part of my cover, connections to help me blend in. But that changed. When we faced the troll, the chess game, Quirrell, those moments were real, Ron. You became my friends, not my mission. Ron studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Figured it was something like that. No one's that good an actor. Not even a department super spy. The casual acceptance in Ron's voice meant more to Harry than he could express. Instead, he gestured to the clearing. Want to learn some of what they taught me? Might be useful when we get back to school. Ron's face lit up. Definitely. Though if you make me get up at dawn every day, we're going to have words. On the 5th day at the Burrow, Bill emerged from his research seclusion, looking simultaneously troubled and excited. I found something, he announced to Harry, Ron, Hermione, and his parents gathered in the kitchen. Several somethings, actually. He spread out ancient parchments and genealogy charts across the table. First, I've confirmed Harry's descent from Ignotus Peveril. The Potter line maintains some of the purest Peveril bloodline traits through selective marriage over generations, often to distant cousins with trace Peveril ancestry themselves. Like how purebloods all marry each other? Ron asked, making a face. Similar, but with a specific purpose, Bill explained. The Potters weren't concerned with blood purity in the traditional sense. They were preserving something else, a magical inheritance. From the Veil creation, Harry guessed. Bill nodded. The Peverils created the Veil as an attempt to communicate with the dead. According to these texts, he tapped a particularly ancient scroll. They succeeded too well. The gateway they created was more powerful than intended, forming a permanent breach between worlds. That matches what the presence told me, Harry said. It called the Veil a bridge that works in both directions. Exactly. The Peverils realized they couldn't destroy their creation, so they bound it with powerful magic that only they could control. That control was tied to their bloodline, literally in their blood. Hermione leaned forward, fascinated. So Harry's connection to the Veil is genetic? Partially, Bill agreed. But dormant in most descendants. Something had to awaken it. He turned to Harry. Your mother's sacrifice created a unique magical protection, ancient blood magic that shields you from Voldemort. But it seems to have had an unintended side effect. It awakened the dormant Peveril magic, Harry finished, remembering the exact words from Beyond the Veil. And Director Erebus somehow learned about this connection, Arthur said grimly. Bill nodded. There's more. I found references to a theory that the Veil doesn't just connect to death, but to the source of magic itself. Some ancient wizards believed all magic flows from what they called the Beyond, a realm of pure magical energy that occasionally intersects with our world. And Erebus wants to harness that energy, Harry said, understanding dawning. He wants to use me as a conduit to channel magic from beyond the Veil. The power would be enormous, Bill confirmed. And completely uncontrollable. It would be like trying to channel a hurricane through a keyhole. That's why the presence warned me, Harry realized. It said Erebus doesn't understand what he's doing. Molly looked horrified. We need to stop this madman before he gets his hands on Harry again. We also need to prepare for Harry's return to Hogwarts, Hermione pointed out practically. Term starts in 3 weeks, and the department will certainly be watching for him there. Arthur nodded thoughtfully. We need a strategy. Bill, how much control over this Veil connection can Harry develop? With proper training? Significant control, Bill replied, studying Harry with professional interest. The Peveril text suggests specific meditative techniques to strengthen the bloodline connection while maintaining separation, essentially allowing communication without risking possession or energy transfer. Can you teach me? Harry asked. Some basics, yes. For the rest. Bill hesitated. We might need specialized help. Not Dumbledore, Harry insisted. No, Bill agreed. But there are others with knowledge of ancient magics who operate outside traditional authority structures. Bill has contacts through Gringotts, Arthur explained. The goblins maintain knowledge of old magic that wizards have forgotten or suppressed. For the next 2 weeks, Harry divided his time between Bill's intensive training sessions, preparation for returning to Hogwarts, and strengthening his friendships with Ron and Hermione on a foundation of truth rather than mission parameters. Bill's techniques focused on controlled meditation that allowed Harry to hear the Veil's music without risking full connection. Unlike the department's approach of binding and forcing, Bill taught methods of respectful communion, acknowledging the boundary while establishing clear limits. Think of it as learning to listen without being drawn into the conversation, Bill explained. You can hear what's being said without letting it pull you across the threshold. Meanwhile, Arthur made discreet inquiries about department activities. The news wasn't good. They're searching for you intensively, he reported one evening. Officially, you're listed as a vulnerable minor wizard requiring protective custody. Unofficially, unspeakable teams have been spotted investigating locations with historical connections to the Peveril family. What about Rookwood? Harry asked, concerned for his former mentor who had helped him escape. Arthur's expression grew troubled. Removed from active duty, pending loyalty assessment. That's ministry code for intensive interrogation. Harry felt a stab of guilt, quickly followed by determination. Rookwood had made his choice, knowing the consequences. The best way to honor that choice was to succeed in understanding the Vale connection on his own terms. As September 1st approached, they formulated a plan for Harry's return to Hogwarts. Unlike his department mission, this plan involved genuine collaboration, with each person contributing ideas based on their unique perspectives and abilities. You'll need to attend school normally, Hermione advised. Maintaining your education and cover identity is essential. But we'll need to research the Peveril connection further, Ron added. Hogwarts library might have books even Bill can't access. And you'll need to practice the protection techniques daily, Bill emphasized. Your connection to the Vale will continue developing whether you're actively working with it or not. Arthur provided the final piece. I've arranged for secure communication. This two-way journal is linked to one Bill will keep. He handed Harry a leather-bound book similar to his department communication journal. It's goblin-made, virtually undetectable by wizard methods. The night before they were to leave for King's Cross, Harry sat in the Burrows garden, watching gnomes scamper through the vegetable patch while practicing the centering techniques Bill had taught him. The distant Vale music had become a constant presence in his awareness, but now it felt less intrusive, more like a reference point than an overwhelming call. Ginny Weasley, who had gradually overcome her shyness around Harry, approached hesitantly, sitting on the bench beside him. Ron told me some of what happened to you, she said quietly. About the department training you since you were little. Harry nodded, unsure what to say. Throughout his stay, Ginny had been a peripheral presence, helpful but reserved, unlike her boisterous brothers. I wanted to tell you something, she continued, staring at her hands. Last year, Dad brought home a diary from work. An old one, with nothing written in it. I started writing in it, and it wrote back. Harry's attention sharpened. What do you mean, it wrote back? The ink would disappear, and new words would form. Someone called Tom. He was so understanding, so kind. She shuddered slightly. But then I started losing time. Hours I couldn't remember. And terrible things would happen during those blank periods. What kind of terrible things? Harry asked, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. Messages written on walls. Dead roosters. I think. She swallowed hard. I think Tom was using me somehow. Possessing me. Ginny, this is really important. Where is the diary now? Dad took it when I finally told him. He was furious, not at me, but at whoever created it. He said it was dark magic, some kind of enchanted artifact designed to influence the user. Harry processed this information rapidly. An enchanted diary that could possess its user. A name, Tom, that triggered something in his department briefings, though he couldn't immediately place what. Why are you telling me this? He asked gently. Because, Ginny said, finally meeting his eyes, when Dad described what the department wanted to do with you and the Vale, using you as some kind of bridge or channel, it sounded like what Tom was doing to me. And I thought you should know that fighting that kind of control is possible. I did it. I broke free enough to tell Dad before it went too far. Harry felt a surge of respect for the young girl beside him. That was incredibly brave, Ginny. She shrugged, embarrassed. Not really. I should have fought harder sooner. You fought when it mattered, Harry said firmly. That counts for everything. As they sat in companionable silence, Harry made a mental note to investigate this diary further. Something about it nagged at the edges of his memory, a connection he couldn't quite grasp but felt certain was important. The journey to Hogwarts the next day proceeded smoothly until it didn't. Harry, Ron, and Hermione arrived at King's Cross with the other Weasleys, only to find the portal to platform 9 3/4 inexplicably sealed when Harry and Ron attempted to pass through after the others. What's happening? Ron asked, rubbing his trolley-battered hands. Harry examined the barrier with his enhanced magical senses, detecting an unfamiliar blocking charm. Someone sealed it. Recently and specifically. The department? Ron whispered, glancing around nervously. I don't think so, Harry replied. This doesn't feel like their work. It's cruder, more direct. After a quick consultation, they decided to wait near the barrier, hoping Arthur would come back to check when they didn't appear on the platform. But as the minutes ticked toward 11 o'clock, Ron grew increasingly agitated. We're going to miss the train. What if Dad can't get back through either? Harry considered their options. We need to contact them somehow. Ron's face suddenly lit up. Dad's car. We drove here in his enchanted Ford Anglia. It's got an invisibility booster. We could fly it to Hogwarts. That seems. Harry began, then reconsidered. His department training emphasized logical solutions and minimal risk. But sometimes the unexpected approach had advantages. Actually, that might work. If we stay high enough and keep the invisibility engaged, we can follow the tracks directly to Hogwarts. The plan immediately encountered problems. The invisibility booster fluctuated, the car's navigation system seemed confused, and by the time they spotted Hogwarts in the distance, the engine was making alarming noises. It's losing altitude. Ron shouted as they descended toward the castle grounds. Harry assessed their trajectory. We're going to hit the rest of his sentence was lost as the car crashed into the branches of an enormous tree, which immediately began attacking them with whip-like limbs. Whomping Willow. Ron yelped as a branch smashed the windshield. Harry's training took over. Engine off. Doors open on 3. 1, 2, 3. They tumbled from the car seconds before a massive branch crushed the roof. The car itself seemed to develop a mind of its own, ejecting their trunks and taking off toward the forbidden forest with an angry revving sound. Dad's going to kill me, Ron moaned, watching it disappear. At least we made it, Harry said, helping Ron gather his scattered belongings. Though I'm pretty sure this counts as a spectacular arrival, the department would have advised against. Their entrance to the start-of-term feast, dirty and disheveled, drew immediate attention. Professor McGonagall intercepted them in the entrance hall, her lips pressed into the thinnest of lines. Explain, she demanded after pulling them into her office. Ron launched into a rambling explanation about the barrier and the flying car, while Harry observed McGonagall's reactions carefully. She seemed genuinely surprised about the platform barrier, which suggested it wasn't a Hogwarts security measure. After assigning detentions but mercifully not expulsion, McGonagall dismissed them to the feast. As they entered the Great Hall, Harry performed a quick, subtle scan for department personnel, an automatic security check Rookwood had drilled into him. Nothing obvious, but that meant little. Unspeakable excelled at concealment. Hermione's relief at seeing them quickly transformed into exasperation when she heard about the car. You could have been seen. You could have died. But we weren't, and we didn't, Ron pointed out, helping himself to chicken legs once they were seated. Harry ate mechanically while analyzing their situation. The sealed barrier suggested someone wanted to prevent his return to Hogwarts, or perhaps create a situation where he'd be vulnerable outside the castle's protections. But who? The department would have used more sophisticated methods. Dumbledore seemingly wanted him at Hogwarts where he could be monitored. A new player, then. Someone else with interest in Harry Potter. That night, after his dorm mates were asleep, Harry documented the day's events in the Goblin Maid Journal, detailing the barrier incident and his suspicions about a third party's involvement. Bill's response appeared quickly: barrier tampering requires significant magic. Not random. We'll investigate ministry records for similar incidents. Continue vigilance, practice protections daily. Connections will strengthen at Hogwarts due to magical concentration. As Harry closed the journal, he sensed a subtle shift in the veil music at the edge of his awareness, like a change in key or tempo. Bill had warned this might happen as he entered Hogwarts' magical environment. The ancient castle's own magic, created by centuries of wizards including likely some Peveril descendants, would resonate with his awakened bloodline connection. Closing his eyes, Harry implemented the centering technique, acknowledging the music while maintaining separation. As he did, a thought surfaced, clear and distinct as if spoken aloud: there is another piece of beyond magic within these walls. Fractured and wrong. A violation of boundaries. Harry's eyes snapped open. This was new, not just music or impressions, but a direct communication while fully awake and conscious. And the content was disturbing. Something fractured and wrong in Hogwarts. Something connected to the veil or the magic beyond it. Ginny's story about the diary immediately came to mind. A magical object that could possess its user, that certainly qualified as a violation of boundaries. But she'd said Arthur had confiscated it. Unless there were more such objects. Sleep eluded him as he pondered these connections, the implications multiplying. Voldemort's parasitic possession of Quirrell. A diary that could possess Ginny. Something fractured in the castle that the Veil presence could sense. What if they were all manifestations of the same fundamental violation of magical boundaries? The first weeks of term established a demanding routine. By day, Harry attended classes, maintained his cover as a normal second year, albeit one famous for arriving in a flying car, and worked with Ron and Hermione to research Peveril history in the library. By night, he practiced Bill's protection techniques and documented his experiences in the Goblin Journal. The new defense against the dark arts professor, Gilderoy Lockhart, proved to be an unexpected complication. Behind the man's facade of charm and bombastic storytelling, Harry's trained senses detected something off, not dark magic, but a pattern of magical signatures in Lockhart's spellcasting that suggested extensive use of memory charms. "He's a fraud," Harry told Ron and Hermione after a particularly useless lesson involving reenacting scenes from Lockhart's books. "His magical signature shows memory charm residue. I think he's stealing other people's accomplishments and making them forget." "That's a serious accusation," Hermione said, though she looked troubled. "His books are so detailed." "Details he stole from the actual wizards who did those things," Harry insisted. "Trust me, the department trained me to recognize magical patterns. Lockhart's practically radiating memory charm energy." Meanwhile, Harry's Veil connection continued developing in unexpected ways. The music remained constant, but now occasionally resolved into distinct impressions or even brief messages, usually warnings about maintaining boundaries or references to the fractured wrong presence in the castle. During one particularly intense meditation session, Harry received the clearest communication yet: the chamber has been opened again. The fractured one seeks to use the serpent as he did before. The next morning, Harry, Ron, and Hermione discovered the corridor outside Moaning Myrtle's bathroom flooded, with ominous words painted on the wall: "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." Nearby hung Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, petrified but alive. As students panicked and teachers attempted to restore order, Harry experienced a moment of perfect clarity. The fractured presence. The chamber. The air. It all connected to something the department had briefed him on but considered low priority: legends about Salazar Slytherin's secret chamber within Hogwarts. "We need to research the Chamber of Secrets," he told Ron and Hermione once they were alone in the common room. "And I think I know who the heir might be targeting." "Muggleborns," Hermione said quietly. "That fits with Slytherin's known views." "But who's controlling it now?" Ron asked. "You know who was Slytherin's last heir, wasn't he? And he's not exactly strolling around Hogwarts." Harry's mind raced through connections. What if he found another way to influence events here? Like how he used Quirrell last year? Possession? Hermione looked horrified. "But who? I don't know yet," Harry admitted. "But I think it connects to what Ginny told me about the diary." He explained about Ginny's experience with the enchanted diary and how it had possessed her briefly before Arthur confiscated it. She said the diary called itself Tom, Harry concluded. And something about that name connects to Voldemort, though I can't remember exactly how. Hermione's eyes widened. We need to ask Ginny if anyone else might have had access to that diary before her father took it. If it's what's causing all this. Their investigation gained urgency when Colin Creevey, a first-year Gryffindor, was found petrified. The school buzzed with rumors about the heir of Slytherin, with many suspecting Harry himself due to the flying car incident, marking him as attention-seeking. The situation escalated when a disastrous dueling club meeting revealed Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue, a talent he hadn't known he possessed until faced with a conjured snake. The department had tested him for magical abilities but had never exposed him to snakes. I didn't know I could do that, he told his friends afterward, genuinely shaken. Speaking Parseltongue is associated with Slytherin's line. Why would I have that ability? Could it be connected to your Peveril bloodline? Hermione suggested. The three brothers were powerful wizards, maybe they had rare magical talents. But Harry suspected a darker explanation. The department had theories about his connection to Voldemort, how the killing curse had rebounded and created the lightning scar. What if it had transferred more than just a sensitivity to Voldemort's presence? That night, he documented the Parseltongue revelation in his journal. Bill's response was immediate and concerned, Parseltongue not recorded in Peveril bloodline. Possible connection to V through scar event. Warning, your scar may contain magic beyond simple curse residue. May connect to same boundary violation as chamber incident. This aligned disturbingly well with what the Veil presence had been trying to communicate. Fractured and wrong magic. Violations of boundaries between life, death, and something else entirely. As Christmas approached, the attacks continued. Justin Finch-Fletchley and nearly headless Nick were found petrified, fueling the rumors that Harry was the heir. To investigate properly, Hermione proposed brewing Polyjuice Potion to infiltrate Slytherin and question Draco Malfoy, who seemed suspiciously knowledgeable about the chamber. Harry agreed, though not because he suspected Draco. The department's thorough background briefings made it unlikely the Malfoy boy was directly involved. But the mission would provide cover for Harry's real investigation, determining what was actually in the chamber and how it connected to the fractured presence. During the brewing period, Harry continued his covert communication with the Weasleys. Arthur confirmed that the diary had been secured in his office at the Ministry, ruling it out as the current possession vector unless there were multiple such artifacts. When most students left for Christmas break, Harry used the opportunity to explore the castle with his enhanced senses, searching for magical signatures that matched the fractured wrong feeling the Veil presence had described. He found traces in multiple locations, strongest near Myrtle's bathroom, but also in the dungeons and, curiously, the third-floor corridor that had housed the Philosopher's Stone the previous year. The Polyjuice mission on Christmas Day yielded limited results. Draco knew little beyond rumors that the chamber had been opened once before, 50 years ago, resulting in a student's death. But he mentioned something that caught Harry's attention. His father had given someone at Hogwarts an old-school item this year, saying it would cause trouble for blood traders. That has to be another diary. Hermione exclaimed after they'd returned to their normal forms, though hers had gone catastrophically wrong, leaving her partially transformed into a cat. And if Lucius Malfoy had it, that suggests a Death Eater connection, Harry agreed, helping her to the hospital wing. Which means Voldemort might be involved after all. While Hermione recovered from her Polyjuice mishap, Harry and Ron discovered a flooded corridor near Myrtle's bathroom again, this time with a thin, black book lying in a puddle. A diary, its pages apparently blank except for the name, T.M. Riddle, on the cover. Don't touch it, Harry warned, stopping Ron from picking it up. If this is like the diary Ginny described. Using a levitation charm to safely transport it, they brought the diary to their dormitory for examination. Harry's enhanced magical senses detected powerful enchantments layered throughout the seemingly innocent object, magic that felt disturbingly similar to what he'd sensed around Quirrell's turban the previous year. I think this is it, he told Ron. The object controlling the air. And I think T.M. Riddle might be Voldemort's real name. Ron paled. You know whose diary? Bloody hell, Harry. What do we do with it? We need to destroy it, Harry decided. But carefully. This level of enchantment suggests serious protective measures. That night, Harry documented their discovery in the journal. Bill's response was immediate and alarming: do not attempt destruction. Matches description of suspected soul vessel. Requires special methods to destroy. Secure and wait for instructions. Soul vessel. The term wasn't familiar from Harry's department training, but it sounded ominously like the kind of dark magic that would qualify as a violation of boundaries the Veil Presence had warned about. The next morning, however, the diary had vanished from Harry's trunk. Someone must have taken it, Ron concluded after they'd searched the entire dormitory. Which means someone else is now at risk of possession, Harry said grimly. We need to find out who. The answer came sooner than expected. On Valentine's Day, Ginny approached them in the library, looking pale and terrified. I need to tell you something, she whispered, glancing nervously around. About the diary. I found it in your room, Harry. I took it because I recognized it. It's the same one I had before. Harry leaned forward, keeping his voice gentle despite his urgency. Ginny, this is incredibly important. Do you still have it? She shook her head, tears forming. No. I got scared after I wrote in it again and Tom answered. I threw it away in Myrtle's bathroom. But Harry, I think I've been doing things again. Losing time. I'm scared. It's not your fault, Harry assured her, making a swift decision. Ron, take Ginny to Professor McGonagall. Tell her exactly what's happening. Ginny's being influenced by dark magic and needs protection. What about you? Ron asked, already putting his arm around his sister. I'm going to find that diary. Harry hurried to Myrtle's bathroom, his enhanced senses stretched to their limits. The magical trace was stronger here, a corrupt, twisted signature that reminded him of the feeling he'd experienced in the department when examining certain dark artifacts. Myrtle herself proved unexpectedly helpful. The ghost recalled seeing a diary being flushed, then a strange boy emerging from a hidden entrance by the sinks after speaking funny language. Examining the sinks, Harry found a tiny snake carved on one tap. On instinct, he focused on the snake and spoke in Parseltongue, open. The sink receded, revealing a large pipe descending into darkness, the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets. Harry hesitated only briefly. His department training emphasized gathering intelligence before action, calling for backup before entering unknown territory. But there wasn't time. Someone was down there with the diary, possessed and dangerous. As he slid down the pipe into darkness, the veil music in his mind changed tone, becoming more urgent. A clear warning formed in his thoughts: the fractured soul awaits. Beware, it seeks to become whole through sacrifice. The chamber itself was vast and ancient, lined with serpent statues and culminating in an enormous carved face of Salazar Slytherin. On the floor before it lay a small figure with flame-red hair. Ginny. Harry rushed forward, finding her unconscious but alive. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold to the touch. She won't wake, came a soft voice behind him. Harry turned to find a tall, handsome boy of about 16 leaning against a pillar. He appeared strangely blurred at the edges, not fully solid. Tom Riddle, Harry said, instantly recognizing the magical signature, the same, fractured wrong, feeling the Veil Presence had warned about. In the flesh, well, almost. Tom smiled, twirling Ginny's wand between his fingers. I've been waiting a long time to meet you, Harry Potter. As Tom explained how he'd used the diary to possess Ginny and drain her life force to restore his own physical form, Harry's trained mind processed the implications rapidly. This wasn't just possession as with Quirrell. This was something fundamentally different, a piece of Voldemort's soul preserved in an object, capable of independent action and thought. You're Voldemort, Harry said as the final piece clicked into place. T.M. Riddle. Tom Marvolo Riddle. An anagram for, I am Lord Voldemort. Tom's eyes widened slightly. Very good. How did you know? The department keeps extensive files, Harry replied, stalling while he assessed his options. His wand was ready, but Tom, or this fragment of Voldemort, held Ginny's wand and controlled the chamber. Worse, Ginny's life force continued draining visibly as Tom became more solid. Ah yes, the Department of Mysteries. Tom circled Harry like a predator. I'm aware of your unique upbringing, Harry. The Ministry's weapon, trained since childhood. How fascinating that we're both products of manipulation, you by the unspeakables, me by my own ambitions. We're nothing alike, Harry countered, tracking Tom's movements while extending his magical senses to locate the diary. There, partially hidden under Ginny's robes. If he could destroy it. We're more alike than you know, Tom said softly. Tell me, have you figured it out yet? Why you can speak Parseltongue? Why you have that connection to the veil your precious department is so interested in? Harry froze. How did Riddle know about the veil? Tom laughed at his expression. Oh yes, I know about that too. Ginny wrote so much about you, including your mysterious summer activities. The veil, the Peverils, your special bloodline. But your connection isn't just through the Peverils, Harry. It's through me. What are you talking about? When Lord Voldemort tried to kill you as a baby, something happened. A piece of his soul latched onto the only living thing in the room. You. The words hit Harry like a physical blow. A piece of Voldemort's soul, in him. It explained the Parseltongue, the scar pain, perhaps even his unnatural connection to Voldemort's magical signature. But before he could process this horrifying revelation, Tom turned to the statue of Slytherin. Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four. The statue's mouth opened, and Harry heard a massive body moving within. The basilisk, the monster of the chamber. Harry closed his eyes immediately, remembering from his department briefings that the basilisk's gaze was fatal. As the enormous serpent emerged, he had seconds to form a plan. The veil music surged in his mind, no longer background but insistent, demanding attention. With it came not just impressions but clear instructions: the fractured soul cannot withstand wholeness. Call forth that which truly belongs to you by blood and right. Acting on instinct, Harry reached not for his wand but for something deeper, the Peveril bloodline connection that the department had sought to exploit. But unlike Erebus's forced methods, Harry embraced the connection with respect and intention, accepting rather than demanding. Patronum Peverelli, he called, inventing the incantation in the moment of need. Silver light erupted from his outstretched hands, not the stag Patronus he'd mastered, but something new. A figure formed in the silver mist, humanoid yet otherworldly, bearing a staff topped with a symbol Harry recognized from Bill's research, the mark of the Deathly Hallows, the Peveril family sign. The silver guardian moved between Harry and the basilisk, its light so intense that even through closed eyelids, Harry sensed its brilliance. The massive serpent hissed in pain and confusion, unable to approach the light. What is this magic? Tom demanded, his voice cracking with unexpected fear. Harry didn't answer, focusing instead on maintaining the connection. The silver figure turned toward Tom, raising its staff. Where the light touched the diary on the floor, the book began to smoke and shriek. No. Tom lunged for the diary, but too late. The silver figure brought its staff down in a decisive strike. The diary burst open, ink pouring like blood as Tom Riddle screamed, his form dissolving into mist. As the diary's destruction completed, the silver guardian turned to Harry. For a moment, he felt rather than heard words from it, "Well done, descendant. Remember, boundaries exist for reason, but bridges can be built with respect." Then the silver light faded, leaving Harry standing in the chamber with the unconscious Ginny and the dead basilisk, which had collapsed during the confrontation. Ginny stirred weakly, color returning to her face as the diary's influence faded. Harry? What happened? The diary, Tom, I tried to tell you at breakfast, but I couldn't. It's over, Harry assured her, helping her sit up. The diary's destroyed. Tom's gone. As he supported Ginny toward the chamber's exit, Harry's mind raced with implications. Riddle had claimed a piece of Voldemort's soul resided in Harry's scar. If true, this changed everything, not just his mission against Voldemort, but his very identity. And what was this new manifestation of his Peverell bloodline magic? Not a traditional Patronus, but something more fundamental, a guardian force connected to the same boundary magic as the veil itself. One thing was certain, he could no longer follow anyone else's plan for him, not the department's, not Dumbledore's, not even the Weasleys' well-intentioned guidance. Whatever path lay ahead, Harry would need to forge it himself, using all he'd learned while maintaining independence from those who would control him. But first, he needed to get Ginny safely out of the chamber and explain what had happened, at least, the parts he was willing to share. Let me see if I understand correctly, Professor McGonagall said, her voice strained with disbelief. You discovered the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, went down there alone, found Miss Weasley possessed by a memory of you-know-who preserved in a diary, destroyed said diary with some form of advanced Patronus magic, and killed a 1,000-year-old basilisk in the process. Harry sat in Dumbledore's office, facing McGonagall, Dumbledore himself, and the Weasley parents, who had been summoned immediately. Ginny was in the hospital wing under Madame Pomfrey's care. That's basically it, Professor, Harry confirmed, maintaining eye contact while keeping his occlumency shields firmly in place. He'd provided a version of events that omitted certain critical details, particularly Riddle's claim about the soul fragment in Harry's scar and the precise nature of the Peverell Guardian magic. Dumbledore's piercing blue eyes hadn't left Harry's face during the entire explanation. Most remarkable, he said softly. And this advanced Patronus, you developed it yourself? It was instinctive, Harry replied carefully. In the moment of danger, it just happened. Not entirely a lie, but far from the complete truth about his something went wrong with this response, please try again. Add the next chapter and continue. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.